I'll call the meeting to order. We can start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sherry, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Jeff Karen,
Here.
Jay Edwards,
Here.
Tom Haley,
Here.
Ruth Hollenbach,
Present.
Deborah Janik, Jennifer Jocelyn, Justin LaCroix, Brendan McNally,
Here.
Jennifer Ashley, Joe Souza.
Present. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is item number 4, public comment. Is there anybody here who has any items for public comment? This is agenda item number 4, public comment. Public comment going once, twice, sold. The 5th item on the agenda is opening remarks, and I switched it up a little bit this time, just because I thought we wanted to do a few things earlier. Item number, excuse me.
It's called volume.
Item number 5A is Town Council Budget Update. And I was prepared to just state that I think last night were some votes, but I was fortunate enough that the President of the Council came tonight, and he's here. And I believe that I have a sticky here that there are copies provided from Jan of the budget that was approved last night, which is absolutely wonderful. Is this from Jan? Jeannie? Jan and Jeannie wrote this, I think, but Jan's name is on it. Thank you. I did distribute it. Thank you. Okay. So, and that's right. So I had hoped, I didn't know if I would be sitting here just reporting that tonight under this item 5A. I didn't know if I'd just be sitting here reporting that they took votes. I wasn't at the meeting. Or whatnot, but it turns out that we're way ahead on that because we actually have distributed to us, it looks like a pretty clean copy of what they did vote, which is fantastic. I will let the administrator a little bit later tell us if this is an official submission or a draft submission. I don't know. I know legally he has 10 days to get it to us, but I also know that the president of the council's here, and I did speak with him earlier today, and I think he was going to talk us through just some of the votes that they took, or some of the highlights or lowlights, I guess you'd say. I don't know which way we would look at it, of the budget. Rob, do you have any words you'd want to share about? I wasn't there last night. I was there Monday night, but it seems like there was a lot more action last night than Monday night.
Good evening, Robert Coulter, Town Council. Yeah, we just made it under the deadline at about midnight. We did about 4 hours on Monday, continued it to 4 hours last night, and so if you have the clean copy, which I don't know what you have, I can. I can walk through it, but maybe you already have it. So whatever you think makes sense.
This is clean, and it actually is so clean that it doesn't show any emphasis.
Okay.
So if you've got any.
So at 11:32 last night, a version of the budget was clocked in here after the town council approved that budget and transmitted it to me. I have not yet had a chance to check everything, whatever. So this is not the formal transmission, but it was requested that we make a copy available. I think you requested.
I did.
Somebody did. So there you are.
Thank you so much. So this is an informal draft, but much appreciated, because some years
It's official in the sense that the council adopted it, so, and it's also a public record that way, so.
But you're going to review it before you put a cover letter on it to us? Is that what I understand? Thank you. Rob? So this is clean to the point where there's no emphasis, so maybe you could touch on some of the highlights, lowlights, or, whatever.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm just sort of speaking as one person. What I could do, because it was, I guess, somewhat unique that the Monday meeting was continued because we needed more time. So there was a series of motions to amend that were pretty late last night. So I don't know if it would be helpful for me to fly through what those were. It would take probably 3 minutes for those because that's probably
3 minutes
not.
is fine, yeah.
I don't know if there was amateur video taken that I don't know that's up in the public domain. So if you, Kelly was there, Jan was there, not a whole lot of other people.
Yeah, take 3 minutes.
So for
sure,
those
take
of you
it, take
that
it.
that saw, I think there was a wider audience for the Monday session, just sort of the bigger changes, and I won't. I'll just tell you what passed. The Mack truck sander was moved from payment in full out of the capital budget into the recurring major timed finance payment.
Pardon me, can you
sorry.
kindly direct us to the page and
Sure.
the item
I
where
don't know
it
if I'm
is?
looking at the same thing you are because I'm using my notes. I have. Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't quite sure what documents you had. Okay, actually they look pretty similar.
Originally included in the capital budget document.
Right.
Decided to push it to the other document back into the municipal capital recurring major.
Yep.
Second page on top.
So instead of an outright purchase, it would be a payment plan purchase for reasons that President can explain.
The town administrator and the DPW director mounted a nearly 20-minute straight campaign on how it was critical to the survival of the town. So they convinced but we're still trying very hard, or well, I should say the goal. There is a goal to try to hit the target. So that if you've seen a prior draft of the main motion was in the capital account, as the Mr. Administrator said. That's now moved into recurred major timed financing. That's on page 1, spilling into page 2. And I don't know that. Oh, it's already in. It's already in there.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
That's what I mean by it's really clean.
This happened since midnight. Okay. All right. That's very helpful. So that would have been on your page 2, the second from the bottom of recurring major timed finance. That used to be in the capital, the straight capital line. So that was a change. And that freed up approximately $200,000 for this budget cycle. There was a lot of discussion. We feel that the carrying cost is something like 3%, which is a pretty good interest rate. I've been trying to geek out and try to determine what sort of like the cost of capital of the town is, and depending on who you talk to, at the auditors, the actuaries, you might get a number like 4% or 7%, but I think it's pretty fair to say that 3% is a pretty decent interest rate. Okay, so that was that one. There was. Do you care to hear what there was a lot of discussion about with no movement? Or should I just focus? I'll just focus on what changed.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Elections went up from, well, depending on what your definition of up and down is, it went up on the main motion from $0 to $5,000. That is still less.
Again, can you
Yes.
kindly give the page?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
10:30.
slightly sleep deprived here. Page 2. That's page 2, 1030 Board of Canvassers, 6329 elections. Can I keep this copy? Yeah, thanks. So that passed. There was a motion amendment that moved the main motion. I would like everybody to know that I led a valiant charge to increase the town. Again, this is just speaking as my unofficial capacity to try to change the water budget of town hall and supplies, which I think are toilet paper, from $800 to $1,000. I failed to succeed in raising the budget of our $50 million budget by $200 for water, and I just wanted you to know that. So, next the
Rob, could you go back to, so in the
Sure.
elections, the big change was going from what we saw was an original request of 25,000 down to 5.
and that's why I'm a little. I don't know where your starting point is, because there's if your reference point is the prior budget, or the town administrator request, or the department head request, or the prior main motion, which I don't know how much visibility you had to that. There was a lot of coverage on that Monday, but there was obviously there's a time lag for the coverage last night. So, yep, go ahead. Sorry.
That's an enormous surprise. Go from 25,000 down to 5 for elections. And
Right.
elections are
Well, I wouldn't claim to be authorized to speak on the rationale for this. I'm happy to relate what I think I heard, or I know you have your own testimony, so I don't want to hijack your meeting. So whatever.
Can I just ask,
Yeah.
is there a backup plan? Because if we're looking at the actual for 2017 to 18, the actual spend was 10.7. So where would you pull the additional funds from if you don't place them in the budget?
That was discussed, so, and the sponsor of the main motion, I forget who had the second, the main motion was Mr. Katz, did have a lot of backup, but it's not attached to this sort of docket or
Will
his
that be coming
presentation.
later, or will an explanation be given at another time?
I'm certainly happy to, I think I can request that, or I'm sure it's in the minutes but this was discussed quite a bit.
Yeah, I just want to say that if you look at the video from the first, I think it was video the Monday night, right? So there was a lot of discussion on the Monday night regarding this, and the discussion went like this, that there's already 50-some thousand in that account. And the most the town is, I don't remember the exact number, the most the town has ever used in a year is like 38,000, if you look back some amount of years or some, you know, so there's a huge amount of money in the account. So we're accumulating money, okay? And so there was a lot of discussion. I won't go into it. There's been 15, 18 minutes of discussion on, you know, almost no matter how you look at this, there's like a surplus there. And that was why it went down to zero. That's why there was this history of 25 down to 0, back up to 5. So there's a long history there. So if the video really tells the tale.
But I'm happy to report back or ask the sponsor to come back with.
And then this would be an account that when money goes into it, if it's not used, it stays in that account.
I think so.
Yeah, it's restricted.
Go ahead, Rob.
Okay, so the town solicitor ultimate approval was lowered from $100,000 to $85,000. So that's an impact to the total legal services from 285 to 270. And labor council was increased from 60, I'm sorry, so the net number I was incorrect.
Page 3, top of page 3.
Oh, I know, how many times? Someday I get this. Page 3, top of page 3, 1050, legal services. So the town solicitor and 7154 moved from 100 to 85, and then labor, which was account 7191 sub-account, went up. I'm sorry, it went up from the main motion from 60 to 65, but on the document that you're seeing, went up from 60 to 65 from the prior budget, still down from the town administrator ask. So there's approximately 4 different reference points here, so it's easy to say this went up or down. But that was a change from the Monday night. So the total legal services spend, at least as shown here, I don't think this actually includes bond counsel and some other various other services, would be at 275, down from 285.
On page
Yep.
2, you also missed the council contingency under 1020 town council.
I did. I had imagined I was wearing sort of 2 hats here. One, am I on for actual? Do you want me to just do my
yeah,
thing?
no, we'll get to that later.
Or do you want me to skip that or just
No,
blend it all
we'll
together?
get to that later.
Okay.
Well, wait. Let me see. Hang on. Yeah, we'll get to that later.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
I guess we'll come back to that. Okay, so some smaller items. Page 3, 1120 town administrator, top line 5100. We increased the nominal gross salary from up 2% from the number that was prior. It's a pretty modest move there. That was a passage, motion to amend. The building official was a pretty fairly large change. That's also on page 3.
Can we come back up? Leaving
Sure.
the cities and towns is cut completely? We'll be leaving
It is. That was cut completely. And again, that was the case Monday, so there was no change Wednesday. So stop me if I'm passing over anything, but that was discussed extensively Monday and Wednesday, and that was zeroed out for both the league and the Newport Chamber.
So we'll be leaving both organizations
Well, your budget.
if this passes.
I would imagine, or at least for a year, and see what happens. I don't know if there's a trailing. I don't know how the membership works, but I know I get a lot of organizations that I seem to be behind on dues, but they still be. But that is I should really look at you. I'm going to check both sheets because you're not seeing the change from Monday to Wednesday. You're looking at the change, all changes. Okay. Okay, we're going to come back to town council. I'm catching up with you here. Okay, so the next change, I think, page 3, town administrator. As I think I might have already mentioned, there's a modest change in the gross nominal for the department manager or the town administrator, and looks like a little more variance. That would be the League of Cities and Towns. Okay, and that was page 3. Page 4, I think, is clean. Adopted as presented. Maybe some minor changes here. Nope, adopted as presented. Page 5 is clean.
Can we go back to
Yeah.
at the top, section education seminars? Those, is that the line?
Which page?
Oh, automobile expenses. Page 4. Page 4. Land use. And planning. Automobile expenses.
Was it a change, Rob? We're only doing changes here.
I think it was adopted as presented.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
That one I don't recall any discussion of.
thank you. You said 5 was clean too? Or-
No. Based on the change from it was clean from Monday to Wednesday, but there was a funding of an increase for 2150 tax collector, the department manager's salary.
Okay.
That was funded at the same percentage increase for the town administrator, but it was not as high of an increase as the town administrator requested. That was multiple motions and ended up landing at the 2% that you see there.
I'm sorry, again.
2150, page 5,
Middle of the page.
sub-account 2050-100. Okay. $2190, page 5, insurance HSA. There were no motions to amend on that. That is, as I understand, anticipated savings in that account based on collective bargaining results. Okay, page 6. Okay, OPEB.
Page 6,
Yep.
second one down.
I don't know. I'm not sure where you are in your testimony. This is a new account. This was funded not at the $300,000 level requested, ultimately $100,000. It was another multiple motions that had a lot of attention. So that was pretty noteworthy. The account right below it, Social Security, was a minor change. That was mostly mathematical in nature, a lot of dialogue with the treasurer. I don't think that was particularly controversial, just in numbers on that one. Okay, so should I keep going?
OPED, what was that?
I mean, what's the description of it?
Yes.
Rob, could you describe what that is? The OPED one?
Yeah, again, and I'm just sort of administrative relaying. I'm not, I'm trying to argue it. So that's going to be other post-employment benefits. So that's not going to be pensions, as in cash pensions, and it's not going to be accrued time,
Yep.
which I'm happy to learn there actually is a line item for, actually it's right there at 2,300 unfunded liability. So the lion's share of the OPEB is essentially health benefits and perhaps some dental and life, mostly health benefits. And so, post-employment health benefits. And I'm just my opinion, but I think that it's pretty important that, as far as I know, this is the first time that I know since I've been involved in a decade that we've tried to put a line item here to recognize what is a substantial liability, something in the neighborhood of $17 million, 12 on the town side, 7 or 8 on schools, plus or minus. I might have those numbers a little off. So it's a big problem. It's a big number. But this is the first time to at least get it on a piece of paper. If I think I can speak, try to get a sense of consensus, I mean, obviously a lot of our votes are very close, by the way, but what I do think it's fair to relate, and what I suggest the town administrator has done a nice job of, is at least putting these things on paper to, so that they're in front of you, even though we can't necessarily estimate the cost. And I'll also say that I think that we have already experienced and are on our way to experience good success in trying to get OPEB under control through some of the contract negotiations that we're having now. The trick is that there's this sort of view that you need to kind of have like a PhD in actuarial science to know with precision what it is. This is just my personal opinion that we don't need to have precision on it because we know the number is very big. And it's, so whether it's 15 million or 18 million, it's many more millions than we have now. And so the goal here is just to get it on paper and start to build a plan around, at least start to think about how we're going to address it. Something along the lines of what you've seen on the capital items, that there's no suggestion that just by laying every single one of them out there that we think that we can possibly pay for them all this year. But to my knowledge, nobody's ever laid them out on such a comprehensive manner. So that's the idea, OPEB. This did have a lot of discussion. I don't recall anybody saying it should be 0. It was just a question of, let's make sure there's a qualitative recognition of it and then go from there. I don't know if that was too long of an answer, but.
So this amount was carried in with the regular insurance?
This is a newly funded account, and of course now it's public record with the approval of the police contract. The police union is also contributing, and I think it's 1% of their fund, of their gross, into a restricted account for OPEB for them. And so this would also show an employer contribution. There's no requirement. I wouldn't be surprised if in the future, the way that you've seen with the pension, that they're the MERS and the required pension contributions, I wouldn't be all that surprised if in 5 years you saw the state also requiring something like that here. Hopefully you'd see some reform at the same time.
I guess I'm confused. You say this is a new account. How are we're paying for their pensions
As you go.
as we go?
Well, in this case, health insurance, as you go.
So, and I
But that's
understand-
insufficient.
I understand that, you know, you talked about a bubble. But this money's gonna be invested, how, or is it just going?
It would be in the trust.
If I may, I assume that you know what the whole issue has been with OPEB, post-employment benefits. Some would say that after years, if not decades, of just granting certain amounts of benefits, but not necessarily looking at how we're actually going to pay for it when it becomes due, because we don't necessarily when people will retire. That has been growing, and Tiverton is not alone, also not at the bottom of the ladder in terms of unfunded liability in that regard. But that unfunded liability has become a huge controversial issue all over, not only Rhode Island either, as it technically can threaten the fiscal stability of the town. Because if all of a sudden it comes due, you don't have the money, you still have the legal responsibility. So more and more, we have been both pushed as government folks to do something about it, but also started to recognize that from a financial management perspective, it behooves us to try and get, if not in front of the curve, or ahead of the curve, at least closer to it. And it's also important, I think, to point out that only one of the ways to do that is to put money in a fund and invest it. The other way is to really start managing the expenditures on the healthcare benefits, which obviously is a sensitive subject, has to be negotiated in the bargaining, collective bargaining agreements. I will say that the negotiations that we have been going through, we have very much focused on that, so that you not only try to catch up with what is already unfunded liability, but you try to reduce additional liability as we go along. That has been a priority for the council, and so far, we're making some progress in that regard.
Thank you, Jan. Rob?
So right under OPEB is, I think I mentioned Social Security, and I think that's it for page 6. Okay. So page 7 is police. This is a somewhat interesting one. There's been a contract recently approved, as I might have just mentioned. So you'll see some variation in the numbers there. There was a very interesting discussion about which numbers to use. Approximately the top third of the line items you see are based on the fiscal impact statement, and the rest of them are based off of treasurer calculations. I think the actual difference between the two at the end of the day was something like maybe $30,000, but there was a lot of discussion about that. But know that the police department line items that you see here are intended to reflect the recent contract.
Just to clarify, so originally in the administrator's request, no increase was proposed because we were still in negotiations. That has now concluded. We have a good idea of what the cost is going to be. We have these plugged in, which also reduces the pressure on the contingency account.
And also the reason why Social Security went up is that, as this has been updated. from
Gross
contract
salaries,
stuff, it's
right.
Based on.
Right. And also, I think why you saw the health savings account line change a bit. As you well know, as well as anyone, these are all at some level estimates, but we have a fair amount of precision. I'll say, too, that this was the best fiscal impact statement that I've ever seen. That was had a lot of very precise detail, employee by employee, was maybe 4 or 5 worksheets in there. It gets better every iteration, but this one was quite good. Okay, so page 8, I think, is approved as presented. Ditto page 9. On page 10, the garbage and recycling receptacles, that appears as a new account. That was moved from the capital. We had a very interesting debate about whether garbage recycling bins were capital assets or not, but it didn't change the bottom line. So I think that takes us to on-site. Okay, so that's page 10, that's sub-account 7732. It ended up being level funded. Lots of discussion around that topic, as well as around Bay Street. But just ended up matching the... I can come back anytime you'd like to. So page 11, I think, is clean. Boards and commissions. I'm sorry. Page 11, 6210 boards and commissions. There was a very modest $500, well down from the $5,000 request originally, and the $2,500 town administrator request for the Historical Preservation Advisory Board. We have confirmed our belief that it is irrelevant whether it is a non-elected committee or in the charter or not in the charter. In any event, although these are indicated as boards and commissions, the town administrator still wears the bullseye on the accountability for that spending. So those funds aren't going to be spent without his watchdog oversight. Sure. Okay. Civic appropriations, page 12. Did I miss anything? So far, so good? Okay. These are always tough. I know you know how this is. There's so many great organizations. It's hard to know how to fund them all or whether we should fund them all. So there was actually no activity last night that changed the motion from Monday. So there, does this have the, the one thing I took of note that perhaps you might find of interest is the Eastern Rhode Island Conservation District and the Fire Rescue Community Training. Those are, seem to be providing almost direct services in support of town operations. So while I'm sure they are civic operations, I would almost encourage you to think of them as vendors, and I mean that in the best possible way. So if those were not funded, it's a little bit different than all just regular good charitable work that, you know, I think all of us are involved in various ways, because they are currently providing direct support to town operations. So, for example, in the fire rescue situation, there's CPR training being administered to our staff, to our firefighters, and I believe our police officers. So, if that doesn't happen through this organization, there's a risk that it could be somewhere else. So, I'm not trying to say that you know, all the organizations have value, but those two in particular seem to have a direct link to town operations, and there's that perennial debate about how do you fund the, you know, there's so many good civic organizations. So I'm sure you know how that conversation goes. I do want to be very clear that, and it will be it is in the motion, that although you're seeing numbers here for the town clerk and the town treasurer and the school, those are not votes of the council. Those are just here for your discussion purposes. We obviously need to keep an eye on this to make sure you don't go over the state tax cap, and we're obviously all trying to work together. But as you know, it's been longstanding custom to include some of those line items. I don't know why the town sergeant doesn't get to put, when I was on the Charter Review Commission, I said the town sergeant should also be able to put in as an independent elected officer, right? So I guess we did vote on the town sergeant's budget, but we did not actually vote, let it be said and known, on the other three. On capital, we had the first workshop, the joint workshop with you. I think we've had 6 meetings. We probably spent over half of our 6 meetings on capital, and I know you're spending a lot of time on it as well. The Bay Street remediation, that did get a lot of attention. I'll try not to belabor it, but we have reached, I don't know if I can say the word we, but there were concerns raised about whether the settlement funds that were in the initial proposed main motion, which was not necessarily the intent of the town administrator. I just want to be clear, there's no intent to use settlement funds for Bay Street, and that ended up being zeroed out anyway. So that had a lot of discussion. The seawall repair went to zero, but I don't remember any debate. I know I missed a workshop, so I don't know if that was the seawall night. I don't know if I can add any value to that. I'm sorry, I'm on page sort of 1 of 3 of the capital document, which is at the end of the... one thing I hope maybe we could consider is we spent a lot of time talking about, you know, paving and drainage, and do they have to be separate? And I imagine we're all probably heading towards a typical resolution where we restrict these funds, if it's approved, to their use. I might encourage us to think about doing that restriction by subcategory. So, for example, if you go to town buildings, you can see there are multiple buildings that are calling out for potential studies or repairs. We had a lot of debate about that. I don't know if you have or will. You might consider whether to just put the resolution on the total, the subtotal, and if you're comfortable with that, allowing some flexibility so that if the town administrator determines that, you know what, we're actually not going to renovate the senior center, I really, really want to do the DPW. The town administrator made a very strong case for DPW. Well, he made a very strong case for every single thing, right? Which is his job. So, but So I don't know how detailed you want to get about this building versus that building. It might be worth thinking about looking at that subtotal of all town buildings, and then depending on which building is thought to be the priority or bandwidth or perhaps some grant money. That's just a thought. The system-wide master plan for Parks and Rec was zeroed out. I don't know. I should just ask you, are there any in particular? Garbage and recycling, again, was funded what was transferred over to the operating account, as was copier leases. Where are the copier leases hiding? They are down in page 3 at the very end. The Mack truck, I said, was transferred over to financing. I don't know. I'm sorry, I just jumped ahead to page 3. I think those are the greatest hits. The revenue numbers, perhaps, we should touch upon that. And then if you want, I can wear my more official hat and talk about the council items whenever you'd like, but,
No, we'll get to the agenda.
Okay.
We'll make you stay for a while.
okay. So, on the revenue numbers, I see on page 1 of the revenue numbers, there was a variance in the recording fees. I'm sure somebody will tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that was controversial. I think that's simply new data, as I'm sure you will also receive new data as it comes in. Recording fees have been very strong, as I imagine it's tied to town growth and the economy. The ditto for building permits. Again, I think in inspections, I think these are just simply newer, better numbers coming in. And then if I turn to page 2 of the revenue, it looks like none of those have changed. Perhaps a slight little bit on the school operations aid. Well, by a slight little bit. It just nets out to 4,000, so that's about flat on the school aid. I think Sally can speak to that if needed. And then on the last page of this whole packet, which is page 3 of the revenue numbers, the town administrator did not, as I don't believe, request, but the council approved a general fund balance withdrawal of $800,000. That was up from $775 from Monday night. And I think that leaves roughly $600,000 in the general fund above and beyond the 3% charter requirement. And the industrial park fund, and this is interesting because I think I'm correct in saying that those funds, as they sit there today, are restricted. There have been prior FDRs that have taken a percentage of the sales of property and kept it restricted. So much like I think you have some expenses that are restricted, this is almost in a sense a restricted source of revenue. So I would, of course, if you chose not to fund the $300,000 industrial park expense, I would probably suggest that you would not be able to include the $300,000 in revenue. So please keep that in mind. I think that's it.
Rob, there was one on page 2, the private detail for the police was a pretty big difference. Showing right about middle of the page, 4280 is 114,000. Is that new data as well, or is that a different way of looking at it?
I don't know. I'll have to report back to you on that. Is this the first year we're getting it? Is it?
Well, we had it before.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So at one point there was 0 in there, which was a mistake. Whatever the information, I guess, coming out of the PDA, but it was just an administrative mistake. So
Oh,
that was recalculated. The treasurer took a look at it as well. She estimated around 100,000 for police detail revenue. And others thought that it could be higher, and close enough that the treasurer and the police chief as well thinks that it's an
Okay.
Is that all details?
correct.
For police, fire is a couple line items up. So that sounds like the kind of mistake we love. So bank error in our favor or something.
Thank you for pointing that out, Brandon. I was going to ask the question if you had, but. Okay.
No, just, I guess I'll reserve remarks on the town council items.
Yeah.
Okay. And if there's anything that we can do to support your work, either as a body or any one of us, or we can ask the sponsor to come, obviously just don't hesitate to reach out.
Great. Okay.
Thank you very much.
One question
Sure.
on the, so on the gaming revenue. Will we, can we expect to get more than 3 million if the gaming exceeds
We,
and has it to date, or the number, what do we know now about the numbers?
I don't have up-to-date analysis on where we are and where we're extrapolating. I think and frankly, I've heard some debate that, not a lot of debate, but actually there's really no debate about this in session, but I've heard comments on the side that, well, my goodness, what if they change the state law? Will we actually see the 3 million? So this is just my guess at what the thinking is on this, is that this is a pretty big number, and let's just count on what the actual state law says, and if it comes into the better, great.
Right.
Exactly, but
In addition to more is more to
right, which we haven't counted on that. I think we'd be delighted if that happened, but
Right, the case for the 3 million is the guarantee. And I think it's something you can count at least in this particular fiscal year that we're talking about. What the current trend is under discussion right now. Definitely not grounds to have very optimistic expectations about exceeding
Right.
the 3 million at this point. You never know what will happen. There are no signs that you really should be counting on that.
Didn't Representative Edwards also talk about an additional amount we'd be getting because of the sports betting?
Yeah, I think it's like 100,000 or
that's
something.
in there, yeah.
100,000,
Yeah.
that will come in the first full fiscal year, so after July, it's supposed to come in.
It's on there.
I think it's on there.
It's just below it, yeah.
Yes.
I missed it.
And as you can see, it was obviously a source of controversy last year, but there's been no controversy this year on this side. Both the town administrator and the town council fully support all $3.1 million going in through your responsibilities and then to the FTR. So there won't be any suggestion that those don't go through the process, so that there's going to be an ordinance. So that is a pretty significant jump from the 700,000 or 800,000 from last year. So I think we were a little shy to go even more than 800,000 to more than 3 million, but there's always next year. So,
Okay.
and
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next item. I'm going to do 5B right now, really quickly. So the school committee, first of all, I sent an email out over the weekend. Well, it was actually, where are we now? It's Thursday. So it was last weekend, like maybe Sunday or Monday, I sent an email regarding trying to get together with the school committee. And I think it was descriptive. And so we are all invited to email questions per that email. I think I put all the information in that email, if we have any, and we're all welcome to. And they will do their best to answer them. In addition, we are set. I received a communication from the chairman of the school committee a day or two ago. I think I spoke with them. They are going to come on, the school committee will be here on the 14th, which is a week from tonight. And so they are going to be here, and they're going to come in at around 8 o'clock. It's just worked out convenient on their end. So we're going to build a few items on the agenda, and we'll kind of jump to them right around 8 when, wherever we are in the agenda. So they will be here at about 8. And I also received another phone call today from the chairman of the school committee. And I told him after that discussion that I would report this out, and I'll do that now. Jerry explained to me today that a week or two ago, that they discovered that they had another revenue stream, another revenue source, I think is how I worded it, and that it was a significant amount of money, on the order of $1.5 million, and it was, in his words, somewhat complex in how they get it from federal reimbursements through regional stuff, regional aspects and federal aspects. And so, in any event, this was all discovered, I think they let an employee go or something, and it was all discovered recently. So, all that being said, he wanted to, this was all discussed apparently earlier in the week, or in the last week, in public at a meeting, at a school committee meeting. So, he wanted to, he contacted me because he wanted to talk chair to chair about that, and he wanted to specifically let me know that when they come on the 14th, that they're going to talk about this topic as well. And he wanted to be upfront and open about that. So, and give us advance notice, because it's a full week away, and I guess that was on television and whatnot. So he wanted to sort of get ahead of it, I think, which is great. So I wanted to make sure that I said that too, in advance of him coming, and also just so that for the next week, we all know that they're going to speak about it next week. Okay? So that's the report on that. And again, if we have any questions, I think I put in the email, we can send them off. And that'll help just to, if we have any questions, you know, because it could get to be a long night again. So if you have any, and you know what they are, it doesn't hurt to churn them out early, so.
Are we still having a meeting on the 12th?
Yeah, I'll get to that at the end, yep. Okay, so next thing is I want to report to Joe on the library exterior repair update. I want to report, Joe at the last meeting had a concern about the exterior on the library. Joe said, who controls that building? How can we make sure it happens? The library, I told them about it. They only put a few $100s in the budget. We really need to make sure this gets fixed properly. Well, I thought about it for a couple of days, and I ended up speaking with the town council president, who I knew was going to be here tonight. And so I put it on the agenda. And he had an idea where perhaps the money could, had kind of a legal way where we could fund this on the town side, and it could be, and it could be, the repair could perhaps happen from the town side on the building. Mr. President, could you like tell me what you told me a couple of days ago in your
Okay, and
profound
again,
words?
That's not even Mr. Pratt. It's like a Rob Coulter hat on this time I'm wearing, I think. The idea here, there's been, I think it's fair to say, there's been a little bit of an interesting question about exactly what the status is of the library vis-a-vis the town. Is it part of the town proper with a capital Tiverton T, or is it not? We're not really sure. The solicitor is looking into it, and so one question is there a way that you might choose to add funds to the library in a way that does not necessarily increase the new baseline? I don't know if we use the phrase maintenance of effort with the libraries the way we do for the schools. Not quite sure. So I was just putting on my day job hat, and I was just thinking you might be able to strike a memorandum of understanding. And again, this is just one person's idea. I'm not suggesting this in any kind of official capacity, that you could keep, if you sort of think of the way we have with the schools too, I mean, obviously the town and schools cooperate quite a bit. They have their thing, but sometimes we do provide supportive services and such. So you could actually, I don't think there'd be a problem if the town and the library board agreed that the town would render certain services for them but the accountability for those services would stay on the town side and not be added to their maintenance of effort baseline. So that was
So,
the
for example, like, I think we already, fixed paving and plow. Plowing is something that
do we do the plowing? Yeah, I mean, right. So I don't even know. I mean, I suppose if someday somebody came out and said they're not part of the town, that we could like stop our plows at the driveway and not, so we just work it out through some kind of informal or for perhaps formal memorandum of understanding. So I'm actually not entirely sure what it is that is it maybe a
Well, this is
maintenance
like
or-
I don't know if they call this a capital repair, more of a maintenance repair.
Right.
With caulking and whatnot.
Right.
Joe, through his experience, said he thought it was, $4,000 or $5,000, and you'd want to go to a vendor who
Right.
does this sort of thing all the time with that right type of equipment.
So I don't see any reason, and again, you perhaps want to diligence it, but if I remember, speaking of Joe, it was Joe and I and others that were volunteering to blow insulation into the fire station. If we could hook that up, I'm sure that's possible that the town could provide the services to the library with a simple MOU, and you would get permission from the library board to say, hey, do you mind if we come on your property? If you want to get lawyers involved, we could do releases and stuff, and then just make it clear that they're accepting it as a sort of an in-kind contributed service, but it isn't a budget allocation that increases to. That was really all.
So it'd
that
be
I
a
was,
memorandum, so what you're suggesting perhaps is a memorandum of understanding between the trustees, so to speak, and
Yeah.
the town administrator, council,
We usually
whatever.
point at each other, but.
Okay, and it would be a simple memorandum of understanding
Yeah.
that says, there's a problem there, we're willing to fix it, we agree to all work together to do this,
Yeah.
and it doesn't increase your baseline, and we're gonna pay for it, and just
Yeah,
enjoy watching us
that
do
might,
it.
and
Okay.
and I would hope that, and again, I'm just speaking for one person, but I'm hopeful that in the next few months, we have more clarity on if there's an agreed point of view on exactly what the relationship is between
Yeah.
the two.
So in that case, Rob, so we would just want to, I guess, as we go through this budget process, there's just two things then. First of all, it would, maybe if we were to do that, it would seem logical that we'd want to put the funds, an account, maybe put it in contingency. If we wanted to fund this properly,
Yeah, I put it
Put it-
wherever
put it
Jan
in
wants
council
it. but-
contingency so that it's
Yeah.
sort of in
Keep it going
control with
capital.
you, so you can make it happen? Is that what?
Let me maybe give a quick update, and I guess we may have been traveling on hopefully parallel paths.
Okay,
So we actually, because I got the urgency of this, that the longer you wait, the more damage you could actually see
Mhm.
happening. So the DPW director has made arrangements to do the inspection, figure out what needs to be done, and then make a proposal, whether that requires town council approval or not. It's my understanding that we own the building and the property. So regardless of what that discussion ultimately leads to in terms of how the library exactly relates to the rest of the town, we currently have some responsibility, and also it's within the DPW's level, area of expertise to do this and address it.
mhm.
And certainly Rick is not gonna try to make it any more expensive than it has to be, but he got the message that this is an issue, being proactive.
Right.
about it, and, go ahead with it.
So we just, yeah, in that case, we still may want, I mean, I don't know if there'd still be a need for a memorandum of understanding, a memorandum, but I'll let you two talk a lot about this all the time, so I'll let you guys hash that out if there is, but. Thank you, Rob.
Just a quick, would there be any building guarantee, like a guarantee by the builder?
We're looking at that, and the library personnel, the library staff has looked also, like with the roof, there was a guarantee, and so there were leaks, I understand, in January. That work has been done, and it was done under warranty. So we're looking at this particular aspect of it, if some similar arrangement or a similar claim can be made. I don't have the results of that yet.
Because if we, like, would we lose the warranty if
Right.
we worked on it?
We should always first look at, are we still under warranty or not? The other thing I will say is, at the department heads meeting, we had a discussion about is that we need to come up with a more proactive approach to how we look at maintenance issues at town buildings. And so we're gonna set up some regular program where at least once a year, we do inspections with our own building inspector, just as if it's any other building. And I think that way you develop a better sense of what needs to be done, and we can plan better for these kinds of things, and hopefully avoid or prevent some of the issues.
Okay. Okay, great.
All as a result of, what Joe brought up.
Yeah, no, it's great, actually. This has worked out, and if it ends up, we have a nice way of doing it, that's great. Go ahead, Joe.
Only that
Is your
I would-
issue?
Well, only that I would think any money that was put forward should be in the capital. That way it's restricted to that, can't be transferred into anything
Okay.
else.
If we need money.
Well-
We'll see what the administrator says, yeah, we'll see how it works out.
It may be that we have to fix it and then we go after the person who did the work, but waiting on a legal battle while it further decays, I don't think is wise. So I think we should
No,
put the
right,
money
right,
in
right, no.
regardless.
We want to make sure we have,
Yeah.
when we turn this docket in, at least we got some plan to solve those gaps, that's what. at
Chase
least-
it later.
That's all, just so we can all sleep at night on that issue at least. Okay, the last item is 5D, conflicts of interest. At the end of our last meeting, one of our members approached me and said that they thought that they had an issue perhaps on one of the topics to vote. And so we discussed it, and I sent an email off to our solicitor and copied that person, and I saw a response a day or two later. And so I think that that topic is off and running, and I'm not involved in that anymore. So I just wanted to mention it. If anybody, as we get closer to voting, if anybody feels like they're voting on paint, and they own a paint company and sell paint to the town, and we're using a lot of paint, then, or a conflict or something, then by all means, just speak up and we'll make it happen. It happened at the end of the last meeting, and it was really easy to do, and, 1 or 2 emails, it was done. So, well, done from my perspective, and that member now is off and running, so there you go. So I just wanted to mention it, that it's there, we can do it, and it's processed. Okay, next item on the agenda is item number 6, discussion and preliminary vote on beaches budgets. Number 6. So we get into some materials now. And this is part of we finally get into the recreations area a little bit. And is this one with, is this the one with Chris or just the administrator? Is this a Chris one? It is a Chris one. I think so. Yeah. Okay. This is you.
All right.
Go on up. Table, whatever you want to table. You're on the docket. You can, Chris, you can sit. You can sit.
Yeah, you can sit down.
Yeah, you're on the agenda, rather. You can sit. Okay. So, Chris, do you know everyone here?
No,
Okay. We'll go around real quickly. Chris,
Romeline.
Romeline.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you spell that real
Joe
quick?
Souza.
Hold on.
I'm not sure I can.
No.
It's really hard.
R-O-M,
R-O-E-M,
R-O-E-M,
L-E-I-N,
L-E-I-N, okay.
Yeah.
second one E.
Okay. Joe Souza,
Justin LaCroix.
Jay Evans.
Tom Haley.
Ruth Hollenbach.
Jeff Karen.
Sherry Ockrey.
Brendan McNally.
Jennifer Rexton? Jen Johnson.
Nice to meet everybody.
Okay, great. So, we have an item here, beach budgets, and I will let you, as I open up my, docket here, I will let you, Chris, tell us about the 2 items in there, the salaries and expenses. Is that the 2, right? 8790, part of Parks and Recreation. Do you wear the
Page
title?
12.
What's that?
Page 12.
Yeah, page 12, thank you. Do you wear the title as like a director of Parks and Recreation, or?
No.
No, you don't?
No, it's volunteer, so all I do is I'm basically chairman of the Recreation Commission.
Okay.
So our job is basically.
But you're the chairman of this Parks and Recreation. I said director, but,
Correct, yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
You
we
are the
actually-
lead of that group.
Yeah, we actually have a parks director.
Oh,
We had
okay.
one.
Okay,
He resigned.
okay. All right, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the thing. Okay, I'm sorry. So, go ahead. So you are the chairman of that, so thank you. And so, go ahead, take it away for the beaches.
So I don't have the numbers you have in front of you.
Oh.
But I have what we had on our last meeting,
Mm-hmm,
which was the proposed
The numbers we have here for beach salaries, so just so you know what we're all looking at. It's a little
Yeah.
tough. Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Kelly.
thanks.
That's a little tough to not know. Yeah.
Yep, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, the 23.5 for beach salaries and beach expenses of 2,500 is what we have in front of us. Okay.
Yeah, so beach salaries, you're basically paying for the gate attendants, lifeguards, and then any expenses would be any kind of safety equipment, things that are needed to run the beaches. So pretty simple as far as those two items are.
Okay.
And then we budget that basically year to year. Last year, we lowered it because Grinnell's was closed. We knew it was closed. We lowered it this year. Grinnell's is open, so it goes up a little bit enough to pay for an attendant and extra lifeguard. Ideally, you have 4 lifeguards running. And our best year, we had 1 lifeguard that actually had head lifeguard, but also kind of managed the beaches. That's what we'd really like to see, rather than hiring a separate person for that. It worked pretty efficiently. And that's independent from the parks programs we do. I think would be a good way to go forward. We've tried to blend them together, but it ends up being a little bit of a conflict with the beaches, because they occupy basically Saturday and Sunday, running around, making sure everything's open and closed, and calling rain days and whatnot, you know.
So you try to get like a head lifeguard who can sort of manage the
That
whole
would be, you know,
beach
the
thing.
proposal right now. Yeah, we did it in the past, it worked, and then we lost that head person a few years ago, and then last year wasn't so good. We lost a lot of the kids. They graduate, they get to a certain age, they're gone. So you have to get in that cycle where they're telling their friends and they're telling their friends, and it really works better. So we gotta get back in that cycle. You know, I think it'll be good. And Grinnell's, I think, you know, with it being open the way it is, we want to fund it and make sure it's clean. So that's another thing we'd like to do, is really make sure we get back. We used to always have a beach cleaner, and we had a full-time person for a bunch of years, but then somebody thought they were making a little too much money, so they fired them. And then we started getting part-time kids. Now we get kids in high school that don't really love cleaning toilet bowls and things like that. Not very aggressive. And then they also they're short, so they're come at the end of the season, they're gone already in August. So it's another thing maybe we should look at with Grinnell's being nice, is to fund it with somebody who's, well, see, you can do seasonal, you can do just summer. We did just summer before, and it worked pretty well, you know, it was just the beach season, but then they're rotating through all the bathrooms, and that's, you know, Town Farm and Bulga Marsh, and then they do the beaches twice a day. So they're picking up. So it's just a thing we'd like to see again. Worked well back at that time, and when we got away from it, the beaches got a little bit dirtier, and then they weren't getting picked up, and it becomes less nice.
I just want everyone to know that my first job ever, where I received a paycheck, not working for myself, was at Grinnell's, cleaning
go.
the bathrooms
Lot
and
of-
picking up the cigarette butts on the beach.
Yeah.
Working for Cam Crawford back in the day, so,
you
and
go.
he was the lifeguard I worked for, yeah, so.
Yeah, and I mean, it's meaningful to have somebody, that's what they're doing. Again, you go to the beach, that's the first thing you want to do, is see sand and water, you know, so I think it's a service we kind of should offer for the people in town. And those who come and pay, you know, good money to go down to Fogland or Grinnell's, you know, so.
Okay, so, do you have any more you want to say on the beaches, or should we ask some questions about that, or if we have questions, or Chris? or-
I'd say go ahead and ask questions.
All right, I'll start over here. Do you have any questions on this side?
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
So I guess, Chris, what you're saying is that the 26,000 gets you back up to full staffing at Grinnell, which had been out before, but the last items that you're talking about to say, to do this better, to have a head lifeguard and to have someone to help out with the grounds in terms of cleaning and stuff, that's not included in the
That's not included in
26.
there, right? That's the suggestion we would have had, or would like to have put forward, something to think about
Okay.
for you guys.
Jan wanted, I'm sorry, are you done, Brendan?
Yeah.
Oh, Jan wanted to say something.
Relevant to that, you may recall that in the DPW budget, there was a request to fund a part-time or seasonal person. And the idea there is that that person could be helping. And I talked with the DPW director about that. And more generally, I think we've mentioned that with respect to recreational facilities, to make it clear that the DPW has a responsibility to do the facilities management and the maintenance, et cetera, so that the Recreation Commission can focus on programming. That doesn't mean that it's a bright line, because we do think it would be good to include in the job description of, say, the attendants, that, yes, you do need to pick up the trash and bring it to the depository or whatever, because it needs to be shared a little bit, but certainly having a part-time person, maybe working more than part-time during the summer, could be
is needed at several of the facilities. So that's the direction we're thinking.
Thank you.
It seems like a really important thing to clarify, because it's a job.
Yeah,
It easily
it
gets
needs to be in
swept
the
off,
description.
well, it's not. And it's so, if we have this prize, it's so beautiful.
Sherry, are you done, Brendan?
Yes, thank you.
The only thing I have is just a question that is curious. Do you guys have any plan to, I know that, is it the Recreation Committee that would decide about, like the fees and things like that?
Yes.
Or is there gonna be fishing allowed on the pier and things like that? Do you know if they're gonna
Well,
allow
there's a
that?
fishing area at the end of Grinnell's. It's kind of been designated in
Right.
the plan, and the idea really is, again, to enforce that.
Okay.
You know, signs, and that would be, again, the gate attendants, lifeguards will be able to enforce that
Yeah,
as best as possible.
okay.
And,
That's all. I just wanted to know if there was any, and, maybe new fees that could come in
So
to
there
help
would-
pay
there-
for.
I don't think there's gonna be
somebody to do
fees
that.
like with fishing, but I think we're planning on voting on a new fee structure for
Okay,
the beaches in general. We're gonna be voting on that next week, so I don't wanna say anything about that, but the
Okay.
intention is to make sure that it's fair for everybody,
right,
but also to pay for the maintenance
right.
as best as we can also.
Okay,
So I think
thank
we've been
you.
okay at.
Joe?
So in the lifeguards at Grinnell's, you're charging for parking
Parking would be charged at Grinnell's, yeah,
when the lifeguard's on duty.
when the lifeguards are on duty, yeah, when the gates is always open, correct. Yeah, so that's what we would save, set
These
the
are the
hours.
asses in our revenue. Maybe it's me, but I see it like Fogland's 20,000 and there's nothing for Grinnell.
Because it wasn't open last year.
Oh,
Yeah, we had 0 last year.
This was, all right, this is not proposed revenue, this was current revenue from this year, is that what I'm looking at?
Oh, that would have been.
Yeah,
So that wasn't included.
Yeah, I know it wasn't open last year.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering why there was
Okay, yeah.
nothing here, because this was reflecting what we brought in this year.
And we're definitely
Okay.
projecting some revenue from Grinnell's. In the past, it really didn't get a lot of revenue because it was only like a $5 fee
But with all of
and $10 fee, but now the way it is, and we're planning on some events and other things down there to really draw people in, I think it's gonna be,
It's kind of interesting,
It should be good
because
for- it'd be
there's
good for
less
the town.
parking spaces now than there was before, so I don't know how you're gonna make out with
at least,
having big events and less parking.
well, at least, I don't say big events, but more things for town, but I think the idea is if it's full and they're all paid, it's good. In the
Yeah.
past, you'd go there sometimes on Saturday and Sunday, and there'd be like, 4 or 5 cars there, people don't wanna pay the $5 or $10.
No, it's not gonna change all that much.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna go this way. I'm gonna make you go last.
Oh, you were going.
No, I'm going this way, Justin.
Oh, I thought you were going up.
No,
He
Justin, it's your
was.
turn.
So
okay.
you switched it up. It's your
Oh,
turn.
okay, all right.
It's your turn.
Yeah, no,
Thursday.
it's all good, thank you.
Justin. She didn't like that.
Well, it's very much in the news that the various state beaches, and it's going to be us too, are having a very hard time attracting lifeguards.
Yeah,
So what are you paying them now?
it's 14.
You're prepared, you're going to have to pay them more, right?
Depends how good we are at lobbying, getting some young kids. We're actively doing that now.
Okay. And the subject
There is
which,
the possibility we have no kids. I don't know, I doubt that'll happen, but it's a challenge.
well, it's just that we're going to be competing with Middletown, with Newport,
South Shore beaches who would really compete with here.
You can get the ones that got convicted and are doing community service.
the Tiverton kids.
Yeah, you actually want the kids, because the rating they need here, you just have to swim in a lake. It's not surf certified, so
Right.
it's a lot easier. So you basically go to the pool, and then you go down to somewhere in southern Rhode Island, you swim out in the lake and back. So it's a lot easier. So there's certain kids that don't want to do the full surf certification, so it's a lot easier, and you get paid more. The downside is, you don't have the camaraderie of 6 or 7 people at the beach all day. You're really sitting by yourself in a chair. So,
Well, I'm just going to bring,
but the pay is decent if you think about it, right?
okay, and then looking at this budget, last year, I think the decision was made that Grinnell's Beach would not have a septic system. You got a big holding tank. Any idea how big that is?
You fixed it.
There's a brand new system.
And they did.
System or a tank?
It's a brand new tank.
Yeah, okay. How big is it?
I don't know the number.
6,000
I know
gallons?
it's sized, in consultation with the,
Well, let's say it's 1,000 gallons. I know what it costs to pump mine. There's nothing in this budget to support pumping that thing probably once a week.
No, it's got a leach field.
I don't think it does.
Yeah. No, it's like, yeah, it's pretty, no, there's a leach field. They replaced the tank, but there's a leach field too. It's an older septic system.
no.
It was just.
It's a tight tank.
It's a tank.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I was horrified when I read this.
With an alarm in it. So that if you get to a certain level.
Yeah, so do we have any
Use the
idea?
bathrooms, you have to
Have
run
we
the water.
extrapolated what it's going to cost us in a year to get this thing serviced?
That's a really.
That's a good point. I figure it's somewhere, whether it's in the DPW, because again, DPW does have responsibilities here. It will be in that budget, or it should be in that budget to take care of that.
So, well, the reason I bring this up, I wouldn't be shocked and amazed if this thing wasn't going to cost maybe $5,000 a year to pump.
Yeah, once a week.
It could be that, we don't know, it hasn't been open.
Right.
We'll know as the season goes on, but I just hope that there's been some discussion and there's a plan on how to deal with that expense.
What was
Because
it
it's
in the
liable to
budget?
be
That hasn't, we've
a
never
lot.
seen a bill for it ever, so.
So,
No, no, we
Nice.
won't.
so they changed
well,
this,
it's-
because we've never had a problem with pumping that tank in the
No,
past. So
it's-
apparently they changed it
Yeah,
from a leach field system to just a holding tank.
yeah, and the reason was they were concerned about the cost of putting in a fancy system, right?
I don't know. That was
Or
pretty
it's
well
just so
funded.
close to the water, maybe, yeah, whatever.
It's
But
not.
in locations, it's actually preferable to have a tight tank rather than a leach.
It's just so close, yeah.
Well, so how
This
long
one
is
of those
Grinnell,
locations.
how long is the beach open in a year?
And that becomes an issue because a lot of people complain when the bathrooms aren't open, going all the way to October and pretty much starting as soon as that snow starts melting. We had the same problem up at Town Farm. People wanted to, going around the track, doing a little walking. So, we started opening the bathrooms a lot more.
So they could be open all year.
Could be, well, not all year, but, you could be looking at like May to October,
Okay. Just,
Something to think of.
just think about it the next time you guys have a meeting and bring that
Like I said,
up.
we've never seen or had that come up in all the years I've been on the
Because
committee.
we never had it. It's-
No, because you had a leaching field, but
Yeah,
now
we
you
never had
don't.
that problem until until Hilton got involved.
And having raised that issue, that's all I have to
Even if you have a
say.
leaching field, don't you start
Tom?
that, okay?
No questions, thanks.
I have a leach
All
field,
right,
but I still
okay.
pump mine. Yeah.
Okay,
Just-
Ruth's turn. Ruth?
Just saying that you've never had it pumped before then, right? Never had to be pumped before?
Well, it had been pumped, but
Well, then who pumped it?
like every few years. I mean, it was.
Who did it?
The septic man.
A septic company.
Call a truck.
Where's the budget, but where's the budget item? Where's the budget item? I'm just asking, do you know where the budget item
You
is for
don't see a
that?
budget item
Had
in the,
anybody bring that up?
Jan?
All right,
covered under.
there's a legitimate question.
Okay.
I would be very surprised if the Grinnell Beach Committee, they certainly dealt with the need to install
Yeah.
this new tank, and it had to be approved by DM and everything. I would be very surprised if there had been discussion on how to pay for
Okay.
the regular pump outs, that it will be required.
Yeah.
But I'll make sure we have that information, and if somehow that was not being dealt with, then I agree, it's an important point to raise. Make sure we have the money for it.
Possibly like in a budget on other town buildings and locations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
You
why I
must have
said
like
it's.
one company that's contracted that just
Right,
does everything on a routine basis.
that's the
Okay.
idea.
How many spaces are there parking? You know?
About 50.
Okay. That's pretty good.
Yeah, and one thought was, bringing in food trucks and possibly charging.
I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah,
The food thing.
we've already got, we're setting up, getting some rules and stuff like that, but there would be a fee for those guys to go down there, and then you could maybe get 6 or 8 of them to rotate them through, different times of day, different
Right.
days of the week. Yeah, I think that would be kind
Yeah,
of.
we had food truck at Fogland a couple of years ago. It was
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, he did okay. He didn't have enough
Yeah.
volume of people to stay down there, though. I mean, some days he was down there by himself, and I would walk over
Yeah.
and like just buy some chowder from him. He had this huge thing of chowder. It was like,
Yeah.
Was he there every day? Maybe you should just go on the weekends or something.
Okay.
even the weekends down there a little spotty, but I think Grinnell's you have the traffic.
Yeah.
How do you get the lifeguards? How do you advertise? Do you go to the high schools? How do you?
And I mean, we've advertised before. We were really, like I said, fortunate. Since I was always on the committee, we had like the friend of the friend of the friend
Okay.
was always coming on. And we had a few people that stayed with us for, I think, almost 6-7 years. A couple individuals kept coming back. And then we had a head lifeguard who also worked over at South Shore, and she kept bringing her friends in. And we lost that group. They've all like migrated.
You have a
have to
job on
get
your
another
hands,
one,
yeah.
yeah.
So that brings up my last question, which is the hours. Somebody was saying, I don't know if it was you, that the guards don't like to be there maybe all day in a summer day, on summer days. So maybe you could. I was just asking, you could even get more hours from, instead of opening at, what is it, 9 to 3 now they collect money?
Yeah, we
Is it
usually have the
9?
guard starts like an hour after
Was it
the
10?
gate opening, and
Okay.
then they stay an hour
I
later.
mean, because if you did 4 hours and 4 hours, you'd get more hours per day, and they would have half of the summer day to do what they wanted. You know what I mean? Like for a kid, I'm
Yeah.
just throwing out the idea. I mean, for part-time job. I don't
And
know.
ideally, that's, if we had like the rec director that we had last year, again, this year, part of that was to maintain that and have those guys, whoever's doing that job, work on schedules. Because that's really, it's
Oh,
hard
so
to
they-
do the schedules, right? If somebody calls in sick, you gotta
That whole
start
thing.
working, so it becomes an issue, and then a lot of people going, like,
Okay.
week holiday. So,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Okay, so, thank you, Ruth. I'm all set right now, Chris, thank you.
Okay, great.
I'd like to move on, though, to your other, you're also summer recreation, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so, we have your budget here, okay? Is there anything in particular that you'd like to touch on about that budget before we round robin quickly on that?
Yeah, nothing particular on that, no.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this? I started last time over here. I'll start this time with Joe. We'll just go around straight so I don't get funny looks from Jay Edwards again. We'll go this way. Joe, we'll start with you.
Nothing.
Justin?
I've got nothing as well.
Jay?
All set?
I'm good, thanks.
All set, thanks.
I have a question. I am curious. So just at a high level, what are the recreation programs that occur in the summer now? Not even aware.
So we used to have a lot of programs, and they were basically the town, we funded them ourselves, staffed them ourselves, and over the last few years, we were told to like reduce that amount because they basically cost money, and so we've kept one program, which is the Parks program, and that's the one that we do up at Cassett School, and that's been pretty well funded and successful. And then the rest of the programs, basically, we've gone out and outsourced them to other vendors. And that hasn't been as successful because most of those programs tend to be, stuff that kids do during the school anyway, soccer, baseball. And so I think, we may want to go back as a town, and maybe not this year, but next year, and really go back and do our own programs again and do stuff that we do here. Because it used to be the Red Cross swim, gymnastics programs. They had some kind of nice things, and they were.
Tennis.
Yeah, they were good, and the town did them, and they're hiring high school kids, so the programs aren't necessarily the most professional, but they still are fun, and they're inexpensive. Now, it's like you have to have gear, and the sign-ups, people are like, well, I don't have lacrosse sticks, I don't want to spend $150 on gear and $250 on the program for 2 days. It becomes like, so we really, I think, as a service to the town, should maybe think about going back and doing that. It's not a lot of money, it's just, again, it's the maintenance and the management of it.
So the one that does remain is called the Parks program, and it's at Bacassett, you said?
Correct. So that's the one thing that the town basically pays for, and it's a summer program. Again, we have a lovely woman who's been doing it for years. She runs it. It's pretty successful. I wouldn't say the town makes money on it, but it doesn't cost the town anything.
Okay.
It's pretty much net to the town.
And for a child who wants to participate in that, is it like a half-day thing?
It's
or-
a half-day thing, yeah.
That's
So
nice.
it's really for, I call it the grandparent kids.
Okay.
Because it starts, 9, 10 o'clock and goes till like 2.
All right.
So it's 4 hours. We did do a full day program 3 years ago, and it was pretty successful. And that was really, at that time, the town administrator was like, we've got to do something for working parents. So we set it up. It's a lot of work. We staffed it. It was successful. We had 6, 7 kids, and we were hoping to continue it. But again, it became a matter, we lost our director. He took a job up in Barrington, and he was running the thing. And it was like to start over again, it was a lot of work, you know. Got a lot of turnover in the rec department. And we just lost our director. He took another job, so you know somebody who wants a job.
Okay. Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
Sherry?
No, I don't think I have any questions.
Brendan?
Thanks. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Chris.
Yes.
When I saw your name on the list, I was surprised. I didn't realize you were involved with this. So, as much as we crossed paths,
Yeah,
I had no idea you were involved with this. So, thank you for doing it.
You got it. Well, thank
Yeah.
you guys.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Okay. So now the next item on the agenda is number 8: discussion of and preliminary vote on town council budgets.
Wake up, Rob. Or Rob, you're up.
You're back. You can sit at the table this time, though. You're official this time.
That you're tired.
So the town council budget is on page, it should be pretty early on here, right? Page 2. In the middle of page 2, grouping 10, 20. 1, 2, 3, 5 line items. Thank you, Rob. I'll let you speak to them as you see fit.
Okay, and again, I guess this time I'm wearing a little bit more of a formal hat, but I do want to stress that I'm just here in an administrative capacity relating, you know, my understanding of where the council is. I'd be happy to call a meeting if you'd like the whole council back here, if you want to hear more than just my take on it, although there's only 5 line items here. So town council stipends was not discussed one word that I'm aware of, and I don't know why it went up $200 at all. So I don't know that I have anything at all to add to that whatsoever. Other than I know everybody is always afraid to talk about it because they'd be accused of some kind of ethical thing if we do. So the contingency fund, on the other hand, had a lot of discussion. So maybe what I'll do is come back to that because advertising ordinances also had very little discussion. I think that's level funded and there hasn't been an issue. I'm actually not aware of any pending ordinances, although I expect there will be activity on the solar solar ordinance piece if it comes back up from the planning board, and even if it doesn't come back from the planning board, I expect there'll be more activity on the solar ordinance. The comp plan, that did have some discussion. I've spoken with the solicitor who believes that for just this modest amount, we can get a good start on that work that needs to be done. I think within technically a year of the passage of the comprehensive plan, I think we have to pass some of those ordinances. I'm not sure what happens if we miss the 1-year deadline. And supplies and miscellaneous are just a small decrease. So the only item that I think generated a lot of heat and light was the contingency fund. As you can see there, the prior budget was $100,000. The town administrator would have increased that dramatically, and the ultimate vote that passed would actually be a substantial decrease of that of $50,000. So you're actually seeing the town council coming to you, at least a majority of the council, asking for a significant decrease in that line item. I can tell you that there were multiple votes on that. There were some 3-3 votes. Some would like to see that at $188,000 as it was requested by the administrator. There were some comments at $100,000, at $75,000, at $35,000. At the end of the day, what did carry 4-2 was $50,000. So, there's plenty of different points of view on that. I think most of the discussion around the contingency fund is related to labor negotiations. You may recall in prior years there was a separate account, sometimes called future needs, which was, as a sort of a container of sorts for increases associated with labor contracts, and that account has sort of been collapsed into the contingency fund as well. However, the police contract is wrapped up, and as I've stated, is fully accounted for in the other line items. And the fire negotiations are still under negotiation, but there has, I think I can relate, has been a dramatic acceleration in progress on that. So, you know, it isn't over till it's over, but that appears to be moving in the right direction. So maybe I'll take any questions on that. Again, it's, I don't know how often you have testimony looking for such a dramatic cut, but we're trying to do our part to lead by example here and not ask for more than we need. And of course, as you see, we've asked for a substantial amount of money on the capital side. Maybe with that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, we'll start this side.
So my only question about contingency is, I'm assuming, and hopefully police will, or fire will end out of this fiscal year. But going into next year, there was some conversation, I didn't see the whole meeting, there was some conversation about you have 2 contracts coming up next year. Will this, if this fund exceeds that contract, where will you get the money?
That's a great question, and I don't know that it has been an expressed majority view, but it has been expressed by a number of counselors that the view of the town, at least those town counselors, is that we would like to move away from this practice of retroactively funding raises, and we think that what a more appropriate thing to do, and by we, I should say, those that have expressed that view, again, I'm just relating one part of an argument, and if there's any doubt about it, I'll get the whole team in here so you can hear the whole argument or play the video, because I don't want to, you know, I'm just one guy here. But the sponsor of the main motion, and you know, in disclosure, I supported it, is the view is expressed that if we continue to set aside these monies and then sort of pay them retroactively, it really doesn't generate the sense of urgency to get these things wrapped up, and it really isn't necessarily, I think, fair to the taxpayer or perhaps even to your team on budgeting for things and then having them go back in time. That's particularly true in the scenarios where there is not binding arbitration. Philosophically, I don't think there should be a difference, but as a matter of practical reality, the threat of a retroactive increase is higher in a binding arbitration scenario. But that is the view here. So although we would expect and hope to have results on all of the contracts, I think that's not like a written stated goal, but I think that's a consensus that, and we are very happy with the leadership that we've seen on the police side, and I'd like to give, again, credit to the town administrator as our chief negotiator. And I think that because of that progress, we're seeing a dramatic improvement on the fire side as they're seeing the cooperation, and I think that these others will fall in line. So if you choose not to fund, well, if you follow suit with our modest contingency fund, there will not be a contract that would exceed those numbers for this fiscal year. So that would be the answer to that. And the hope that I would, of course, that would not prevent us from entering into a contract effective July 1, 2020, right? So, but there would not be a retroactive unless other money's freed up, which is possible. And you see a lot of that, especially in the world of overtime, where overtime budgets are fairly large line items. So if there's a way to save money there, then there can definitely be movement on some other items. To your point, though, I want to make sure I've related the other side. There's significant concern expressed also by other counselors that this does not provide a sufficient cushion to fund increases in the remaining pending contracts. So those are the sort of the two views. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. As this budget is presented, police has budgeted increases, and fire is a trickier one, and I have been on your side of this table, so know how sometimes aggravating this might sound because I can't go into too much detail about those negotiations. So you were sort of in the situation like, just trust us, we got this covered, and you should be skeptical of that, of course. But it is possible. In fact, I think it's a stated goal that salary increases can and should be offset in other areas, in particular overtime. Again, that's just my view, which areas the other areas are, but I'm sure you can see from the numbers, healthcare is a biggie, overtime is a biggie, thinking about things, about staffing arrangements, and there's actually, in general terms, I can say some real win-win opportunities to perhaps change schedules and such that, so that everybody comes out a little bit ahead. There are also, not to belabor the OPEB point, but with police in particular, with high confidence, I can say that the OPEB liability decrease, although it really isn't exactly part of the way that the docket flows, is a substantial savings. So when you see salary increases that, 2-3%, that's higher than some. I have a stated goal of no higher than 2%. That's just one person. But when you look at some of these other off-balance sheet savings, such as what I think is a 7-figure savings in OPEB, you have to kind of look at the bigger, you have to try to look at the whole story. But OPEB has never really been dropped onto paper like this before. So I'm not sure if I answered your question well. Okay.
Jennifer?
Can either you or Jan speak to the actual for where we're at with 2018-19? And last year we appropriated $100,000. And so how much, 3/4 of the year?
What line item are you talking about?
The contingency fund.
Oh.
Before we only used 10.
As of the end of February, we still have 77,000 in there.
Okay. So that's helpful to know.
But that, again, keep in mind that the reason that's in there also has to do with contract
Right.
negotiations and the fact that we still
Then we don't
negotiating.
know. So, without the fire being settled yet, we really don't know. So if we don't settle before the budget is out, we actually need more there in case.
That's certainly an argument, yes. The more cushion, the less pressure on us. That's right.
We don't have it.
Yep. And again, that these 5 items, that was the only one that generated a lot of controversy. My notes show 3 motions. It had a lot of discussion over multiple meetings. So again, I'm just relating positions without arguing for one. And of course, there's the video and the minutes. And again, happy to convene the whole council if you'd like to have another joint meeting on any of that.
Brendan?
I'm all set, thanks.
Okay. Sorry, newbie. So I'm assuming, I get that this is a contingency fund, so it isn't just pay, it's a lot of things come out of this fund, right? So not just, so police extra, any extras come out of this fund?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure when it changed. There used to be a separate account called a future needs account.
Yeah.
So certainly labor is a big piece of this, but there have been a lot of other, what comes to mind is we had an IT situation that was stated as a public safety emergency by both fire and police and the town administrator. I think we funded that in part from contingency. The council does have discretion unless the FTR or the charter prescribes otherwise to move some monies around in the case of unanticipated needs and shortfalls. So, what I think is you see is so if there's a vacancy in a town position, or if maybe we didn't have as much snow as we thought, you could move some funds
Right.
around. So it's not just the contingency fund that will plug gaps, but this is the go-to. I think the town clerk, I think I saw her,
So if I'm
is looking for
understanding
hands.
right, the hope is to not be negotiating things retroactively either in the future to try to get whatever money's in the contract negotiations done so that you're not having to guess what that
Well,
amount.
just to be clear, that was a stated position of
Oh,
one or two
right.
people. I
Got it.
definitely am not here to
No.
try to relate the position of the
No,
whole council. So,
yep, I understand.
But that,
Right.
that was one argument that was heard, and,
Okay.
I'm-
I'll go back and watch the.
yeah,
tape.
and again, I want to make sure I help you do your work, but I won't hesitate to bring the whole council in if you'd like.
I just wasn't sure why paid things are in, it's in the contingency fund, why pay things for the police and fire.
It's definitely tight. I think it's, I don't remember seeing it this low. I could be wrong about that. I think it may have been this low in years past, but there was a separate future needs account. But there is no future needs account, so this is pretty much it. It puts a lot of pressure on keeping it down.
Okay, thank you.
I'm all set. Ruth, your turn.
I'm all set, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
There's people on this side of the pole. Hey.
Jay?
No, I think you explained, I understand the rationale behind why you're doing it, and from what you told Jennifer, we don't use, at least not last year, we didn't use very much of what was there. I just do get a little nervous about underfunding this, because it doesn't take too big a calamity
Yeah.
to absorb it immediately. And when people go to the FTR, they vote on this total budget. They're not, hopefully, they're not just looking at the bottom line. They're looking at the funding for each department, for each line item. And the town council, like you said, can and has and will raid accounts to satisfy a need. So that you're very liable to take money from a line item that's near and dear to my heart and put it somewhere else because you didn't have enough money in the contingency fund to take care of that. Personally, I think,
That takes a vote, but
yeah, but yes, it does. But
Absolutely.
when I say the town council, I mean the body.
sure.
So,
And I might, again, stress, these votes were very close. They were, at least on my notes, I'm a little weary-eyed from the last couple nights, but I think there were two motions that were 3-3, and we did have an absence for a medical person, a medical we had an absence. So if we had a seventh person there, that vote could have gone either way. So again, I think, we had to meet the deadline, so you have a vote, but I think you should know that there were very strong arguments made on multiple angles and a very close vote with an absence. So we're happy to give you more discussion on that as a team if you'd like.
Justin?
I've got nothing, thanks, Rob.
Joe?
When you talk about transfers, there are certain restrictions, aren't there, like from salary accounts?
My understanding is, unless it's a charter restriction or in the FTR, I don't believe there's any salary restrictions. Of course, there's restrictions. We had some interesting discussion that ended up being moot about if it was settlement funds from Bay Street. I don't know that there's a per se restriction on salary accounts.
Well,
Could be wrong. I can find
the
out.
reason I ask is in the past, there had been resolves put at it was a financial town meeting that gave free hand to the council to transfer from account to account when we had tight budgets. So I don't know if that would be something you may need to satisfy a smaller. Because I know there's usually money left at the end of the year. I see money coming out of every account being transferred. But I thought there were certain accounts that weren't accessible other than capital. But if that's something you would need, I'd be happy to put that in at the.
One thing I can say is we did not reach the resolutions, and
Yeah.
I think we still have more time to do that. I might have mentioned that, and I think it was a consensus. I can confirm that with the full body, but I think there was this consensus that if you do follow the capital budget format, that that it might be worthwhile to have a resolution that allows transfers, because historically, I agree, there has always been restrictions on capital accounts, but you'd hate to see a situation where, you know, there was this line item for the senior center and this line item for this building, and the town administrator, for whatever reason, wants to prioritize one and not the other, and we're that restricted. We want to be restricted a little bit, but not totally restricted. So I think there might be a way to tailor the resolution to kind of keep it in the same area code. You know, if it's paving, that would include drainage that's associated with the paving, that kind of thing. I feel like in former lives, we used to do more, if you didn't spend all the money, that there would be a vote to keep it carry forward, and then it would sit in suspension, and then there'd be another vote to release it. And I don't know that we still do that. I'm not sure. We don't do that anymore. Okay, so I don't know if that's maybe what you're.
Well,
I remember
find
that,
out.
Joe, vaguely. I do remember that resolution.
It was the year that the state pulled the car tax back, and we were having a hard time.
Okay.
And that year, I think
Maybe we can, at some point, go in the vault, in the cabinet, and try to find it.
I also remember that there was a lot of resolutions prior to that to restrict money, you know, depending on which council was in. It was, you know.
In fact, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm quite certain now, it occurs to me that because we've had transfers recently from the DPW salary line item, right? So we certainly have been doing, in the case of a vacancy or a new position, where we have been moving money. I don't think there's a restriction against that.
I don't know that there is a hard restriction. I think there's something like good accounting principles as well, where if you have to do a transfer, the first thing you do is look for a source that has a close nexus to the issue. So you don't go completely out of that area, and because then it becomes sort of, well, wait a minute, is this what the budget was going to be voted on? So the preference is always to stay close to home, so to speak, on where you transfer from. And what we always do is, in the first instance, if the department head needs more money in an account, look at your own budget. See if you can get it there. And I'm pretty strict on that as well. That we really try that, which is easier said than done very often, because there's not much money. But that's the first one. The next one is, you know, look within the town budget, and only in very exceptional circumstances, you know, ask for a supplemental appropriation. That's really something we try to avoid as best as we can.
I think we ended on Joe, so. that was-
Just, if anybody remembers the year that we had a big rain and the sewer line down on the interceptor line got washed out, and the council had to find money to fix it because we didn't have it anywhere else. I mean, there are times when there are emergencies, and that's, I think, was part of the reason also. You know, if you don't have a contingency, you got to get the money somewhere else. So having the ability to transfer, and I guess a lot, especially if it's towards the end of the year where you can see accounts, you know, weren't spent out. So, I don't know. It's up to you. If you need something, just let us know.
Okay.
Well, again, I have to stress that, and I'm going to have to be careful to try to relate the whole body and not just one person's, but this was a very, very hotly contested item, so I'll make this comment, I'm not making this advocacy, but there's not a whole lot of other accounts really that you could transfer from. I think that's something I could say with some consensus. I mean, if you assume that labor, you know, unless there's a vacancy or some dramatic improvement in overtime, and if you assume that the capital accounts are restricted and you obviously pay bonds, I know from being in your desk that sometimes, you know, you work on this for months and months and you kind of get down and you realize that at the end of the day, what isn't restricted, right? So, again, that is the vote of the council, so that is in your hands, but you should know that there is a substantial argument that would say that number is too tight. And there is a substantial argument that says that it may be fine, either based on the historical numbers or based on some of the contract negotiations. Very, very, very close votes on that. So, in fact, I sometimes wonder, instead of doing the joint workshop that we always do in January, when there should really be in December, like it's almost like maybe it'd be better to do it, you know, like now. And so, Yeah, there's the state law, but again, all I can stress is that if you want to make sure you have a full, particularly I should say on the meeting last night, which had only amateur video, I think the clerk's going to have those minutes actually out for Monday, and our clerk does a fantastic job of thoroughness in the minutes. So I just want to encourage you to look at those, because the other ones I know you can look at the video and you can see the argument for yourself. So I know I'm not screwing it up by misrelating it, but the one on Wednesday in particular, I'll try to make sure you get those minutes as soon as they're cleared.
Jay, last question.
Ron, why did you recommend figure 188?
The contingency?
Yes.
It was largely anticipating, additional increases in the second year of the contract. And I basically asked, because I was pretty neutral. There were anticipated increases that we thought we had to budget.
So you were adjusting the fire? For
Yeah,
the
oh,
5%.
absolutely, yeah, just like it was done last year. And, it's not, unfortunately, you have to do it for like 3 years in a row. You do it year by year.
And can I,
My concern is having it so low, then there could be some items that have, don't cost a whole lot, but then there could be a whole deck of things that get completely removed, because it's so low, and it could affect a lot of little things that could actually make a big difference to the town, so.
And I might add, again, not to advocate for one position or another, but there's really, at least this is just there's this sort of labor piece that used to be in this separate account but there's also sort of the pure contingency piece. So if there's actually, an IT emergency situation, I do think for those that feel that they can control the labor piece, I don't dispute the validity of that argument, because at least that's somewhat of a known quantity rather than binding arbitration type things. But the pure contingency piece, again, I'm not advocating, but the situations that come up, the outboard motors or, these types of things, I just encourage you, as you think about deliberating on this account, just remember it's really two accounts folded together. It's what you used to call future needs, and it's pure contingencies. And
So overall, if the fire is negotiated, then we really want to reconsider that number. By the time
I
we
would,
put out a vote.
and I would even suggest, even setting fire aside, you might ask yourself, is the pure contingency adequate? But so, in a perfect world, and this is just my personal opinion, in a perfect world, I think for a lot of these accounts, we talked about this with IT, we can gravitate towards a benchmark, and perhaps, in a more perfect world, you look at the size of the budget and you say 0.25% of the budget will be the cushion, and so that but I don't know that we're quite there yet.
can I ask a question?
Yep, it's just me. I'm not going to get accused by
That's a comfortable enough.
I need to talk.
Take the labor part out if something happens. Are you confident with that number, just you yourself, taking out the other folks?
We put me on the spot here.
Well,
Well, and I don't want to evade the question, but I need to be respectful that the other counselors aren't here.
You've done this a long time. You're looking at
Yeah,
that
I think so. I mean, to be very candid, I think if you come in this tight, I think that, we would want to perhaps, things that some of the spending that doesn't need to be done in fiscal Q1, so I guess that would be like July, August, September, would be wise to wait, so you might want to wait until, say, after the snow season is over before, some of these things you asked for my personal opinion, I would delay some of those things to make sure that the things that, are we going to have a really rough snowplow year? Okay, it wasn't that bad. We came in under budget. Okay, now let's go to some of these level 2 type. And if we do that and we don't just, release all spending right away, I think so. I think so.
Could I
But that's
ask-
just me, and I don't, you know,
Because I'm trying to sit here and visualize what it's like. If it doesn't come in, what gets stripped? Does something from the senior center get stripped? Does something from park?
Yeah.
Like, what, those are extras kind of a little bit. They're not
Right.
necessarily dependent on the town, because you still have to pay the electric bill, or it's not so.
you have to pay it, and I can tell you, we definitely put the management, senior management through their paces. I don't think they enjoy asking for the, there were even a few that I've tried to move to the consent agenda, that failed entirely. So even a small change on a consent agenda will always get pulled off the consent agenda, and there'll be a lot of questions, as there should be. So, you know, another argument that's been made, again, this is not, you know, it's just an argument that you've heard, is that, remember, if the contingency is not spent, it will roll back into the general fund. So it's not like it disappears or it's restricted forever. There's no doubt about it that you're, you know.
Who's next?
Okay, pardon me.
Who's next? Yeah, I got to keep this moving.
I just heard what you said about all the different other areas that you can get the money, and there's the drainage fund for if there's the what Joe talked about, and there's an issue with the drainage or sewer, you could actually pull it from there. Or
Those might be
I'm just saying.
restricted if we follow past practice.
Okay, maybe that was restricted, but you did mention there are other places to get money when it's needed, and I know that that's true.
Yeah.
So I don't really feel, and what you mentioned numerous backup to what he's saying, which is that the police negotiations are done and that type of thing. So I feel very comfortable with it. I don't really understand quite this many questions, but that's just me. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to take one more because Jennifer asked for more, then we got to move on. Jennifer.
I'm just concerned with extracting the seawall repair, which was 50,000, and also extracting the Bay Street area
Whoa,
remediation.
whoa.
That's capital stuff.
We're on town council budgets right
I know.
now. Hold on.
We're on contingency, but for seawall repair, if we had a weather event, we already have seawalls down here that is falling apart, and that's just such a teeny tiny number.
Yeah, again, I definitely don't want to evade the question. I think it's only appropriate for me in this capacity to talk to these 5 items, but I will be happy to report back to you on more discussion on that if you'd like to see it or convene a joint meeting. All I can tell you, yeah.
Okay. So now, Rob, you've already touched on the legal budget. The next one on the agenda, next item on the agenda is discussion preliminary vote on legal services. You went through it up here. So I'm just going to ask if there are questions because you already went through it. So we're going to go on to number 8.
Well, it's technically not a town council item, right? Or is that?
Well, I think though that
Is that more
we,
of a yawn?
I think that Jan had the council's name on that for quite a while.
Okay.
So I think that,
right.
what, didn't you? I think we did. We did.
That's fine.
maybe.
I
don't know.
just want to.
Certainly left it till tonight,
Okay.
when people were here. So what I'd like to do, since you already went through it,
Yeah.
when you were at the podium earlier, just sort of because it was there, I'd like to just go through for questions. Which side did we start on last? Just if
You
anyone-
started with Joe. Go over it.
Okay, so do you have any questions on legal? Jennifer?
Not at this juncture.
Okay, Brendan?
And just, could you, the Labor Council, that was one that had been reduced, that's a contract that we have to, or that's an estimate? So the original request, correct, was 75 and approved was 65.
Right, and again, I was just reporting out on the activity of last night since there's no way for you to see the coverage. So last night, there was a motion to amend the main motion from Monday night, which you would have seen, from $60,000 to $65,000. That motion to amend, that did pass from 60 to 65. the 65, so that you haven't seen yet because it hasn't been covered in the media or minutes, but it is on your new document that you got today. So that's a slight uptick from the prior budget. It's still not the town administrator request. There is no contract. My belief
So
that.
it's a guess as to what we might need to spend on labor.
Yeah, I don't know that we've done an analysis assuming that a negotiation would take this many sessions. There's certainly not a flat fee retainer for Labor Council the way we have for our general solicitor. I know that much. There is, I want to make sure I try to reflect both sides of this discussion. There is, to be clear, although I think there's a lot of momentum and optimism on fire, there, of course, is not yet a contract with fire, and at least as a formality, binding arbitration has been filed for. So there's sort of a position that says it ain't over till it's over, and because of that, we need to have Labor Council for that. And as I think you mentioned, there are 2 other contracts that are up, and I think I can relate that there is an urgency expressed with our chief negotiator to try to get those done. So on the one hand is this belief that we have a lot of labor activity going on, so that needs to be higher. And then I think the counter position, if I'm relating it fairly, is that we've wrapped up police. There have also been some personnel issues that I probably shouldn't go into too much detail on. I know one of them has been publicly released. I don't think, and I hope we will not have that kind of a repeat. So there's some belief that there was a big, kind of bolus of activity last year that is not likely to recur. But on the other hand, there are still 3 live negotiations, one of which has the possibility of binding arbitration. So that's another, you're hitting on the greatest hits. That was a very well-debated, lots of good faith positions on both sides. And I think the landing at 65 was was intended as somewhat of a compromise in the middle. But I don't know that there was any type of add up the hours and the expected. Did I call me if? And there might even be some counselors here too to call me if I have this wrong. But I think that's where we are on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
The town solicitor had some discussion too.
Sherry, the question? Are you done, Brandon?
Yep.
Sherry, any questions for legal?
No, not at this time. Thanks.
I'm all set too. Ruth?
No questions. I do have concerns that sometimes we spend too much on legal and get into cases where we lose and pay out big settlements. I've heard this, and I'm just mentioning it so that we can, my desire would be to keep from doing that in the future.
Tom?
Thanks, Rob. No.
Jay?
The agreement or contract that we have with the new solicitor appears to say we're going to pay him $98,000 a year. Is that correct?
The interim solicitor.
Ciccio.
I think so. I don't have it in front.
I know.
It's intended to be the same rate as I know
Yeah.
that. There's been a lot of discussion about
All right,
that.
so now I look at this, and your town council request is for $85,000.
That's right.
How's that going to work?
Well, the interim appointment is only through June 30th, so there will be a new, and again, there will be a new appointment on July 1st, so that if this budget is the budget, then the new solicitor will be at this budget or lower, has to be.
It also appears that instead of one solicitor like we had previously, one firm, we now have 3. One for, one for general legal, if you want to call it that, one for prosecution, looks like one for labor.
No, I think there has been variance, and in fact, it goes on and on. We have separate bond counsel, the water district has its own counsel, the school committee has its own counsel, so, these lawyers, they seem to be everywhere, but, I know in the last time I was on the town council, I think we had Mr. Ruggiero was on planning and zoning and land use. Right now, the general solicitor is the same firm as so I don't, I guess it's been all over the map. I'm not sure. Did you want my point of view on that, or is it?
No, no, well, my biggest question was, if we've got an agreement, and it's a carryover from the last one, it just, if we're going to a budget for 2019-20, that's $85,000, and we've previously been paying them 98. It appears that the council as a whole believes we're going to be able to get a firm for less than we've been paying. Personally, I don't see that happening. Especially that much of a difference. Unless the contract allows for a lot of overtime.
I'm sorry, I don't understand overtime.
Well,
I wish I
billable
got
hours, you do an agreement, you say, okay, you're gonna do, in this period of time, 200 hours at X amount of
Right.
dollars. And as soon as you go over that, we're gonna pay you twice as much.
That would, well, I can't say for sure what the next contract would be, but if we follow past practice, the biggest number at the top will be a retainer arrangement, so it'll be a fixed fee. So, there's lots of interesting discussions about whether that's good or bad for the client to have fixed arrangements, but at least you know the cost. But there's no scenario where there would be a plus up or an overtime or on that. Where what I think happens is the argument becomes that it's just not in scope. So, for example, rewriting the ordinances in connection with the comprehensive plan, or redoing a major project such as the Bay Street remediation. There's a little bit of tension there where it's in our interest to go to the solicitor and say, hey, this is a pretty good chunk of change. You're on, where it's an all-you-can-eat buffet for us, get it done. And if it's, the counterposition is that's outside of the scope. So that's usually how these things go. It's hard to write it perfectly, but what will not happen is there will not be spending on that line item that's higher than, there's just no scenario where that could possibly happen. What would happen is that there would be a debate about scope. And without going into too much detail, you could imagine what would happen if all 11 of you called the town solicitor every day and asked for 2 hours of legal work and said, you're under retainer. At some point, he or she's going to say, not doing it, right? And that's, but there will be no scenario where we get a bill or an invoice that says, not under that. Now, litigation is a totally other wild card. No doubt about it. I suppose that money could be moved within the subcategory. I feel like that probably isn't an unfair thing to do if we, for some reason, came up completely bone dry at the lower amount. But I think it's fair to relate that there was a lot more discussion. Well, no, there was discussion on this as well, but the Labor Council were particularly interested in that line item as well. There was no real discussion on prosecution or land use. Litigation, I would say, surprised me. I did not hear much discussion on litigation, although we have 24 cases that are live. Many of those are trust cases, though, I think. So I'm not sure if I've responded to your question, but
Oh, yeah, sort of.
there's no doubt about it that if you fund more than we're asking, then you're giving us more flexibility. That's a fair statement, I think. So,
Okay.
Justin?
Got nothing?
Joe?
Just if I understand, the prosecutions are a separate firm. Litigation used to be, the solicitor previous was Tights. They used to do the litigation too, but we hired a separate litigation attorney now, right? It's Tim Williams, I believe. So then, like, as he had mentioned, a lot of the lawsuits, if the only lawsuits that the solicitor actually represents us in are lawsuits that the trust refuses to take. So not much has really changed, other than, like you said, the point that you pointed out, that we're actually might be paying them less. So if we can get the contract for less, so be
Figure
it.
the odds.
There's
It's worth trying.
I mean, since you brought it up, and again, this is just one person's opinion, but this is what I do in my day job. You're seeing more and more of what's sort of called shopping out the litigation. In fact, some folks will tell you that it's almost a conflict of interest to have your general counsel also be your litigator. It's like you give advice and it doesn't work out, and then now you're in the litigation. And so, I think there's some opportunities to look at, say, even some of the, other folks that have had a relationship with the town and bring them in for discrete projects at lower costs. And then, of course, the hours and the rates don't necessarily, there's this sort of adage of, you tell me the hours, I'll tell you the rates. You tell me the rates, you tell me the hours. Neither of those numbers necessarily translate to quality. I mean, it's a little bit of an art and science. So I definitely think it's a very fair argument to say the bigger the budget, the more likely we are to have good, competent counsel and lots of it. But I also think it's fair to say that dollars don't necessarily correlate with quality necessarily. And I do think that you're going to see an RFP process go forward. But the real threat, at least in my opinion, is not the solicitor line item. It's that litigation line item. And I for those of you who watch the Bay Street situation, I mean, if DEM, or not DEM, but EPA comes to town, and I mean, $60,000 is like 3 days in corporate litigation. I mean, I don't actually know what we would. I'm not like trying to do like a scare tactic thing. I just, at some level, you just have to budget as best as you can, and if you really get hit with something, then we have to deal with it at the time.
Okay.
But okay.
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 We went all the way through, right? Okay, great. So, don't move.
No.
Because Jan said to me in an email, maybe Rob should talk about OPEB, but I think we already did,
Yeah.
so I just want to, he's got you on the hook for a lot of things.
Okay.
Sally, did you bring a
but-
blanket?
Okay, all right. Can you just reflect the minutes that Justin has to run?
Oh.
So we've already spoken about that. Are there any questions on OPEB? We already spoke about it quite a bit. For Rob on OPEB, any questions? Yep, we had a long.
Okay, well, I wanted to stress, I was prepared to update you on last night because you didn't have the media coverage of the minutes, and to speak to the 5 items. Everything else is just one person's commentary, and if there's any further follow-up, anything we can do to support your work, if you want a joint meeting, we'll make it happen. And I know this is the busiest stretch for you, so good luck and thanks for all your hard work.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
One last thing, you had said, we got into an issue, went into litigation. I didn't catch, why Bay Street remediation $250,000 was taken out.
Oh, there was a, well, there was the view,
In the capital.
there was a view that you can explain it better than me, but there was a view, I guess, on the council that the money, that the settlement money should not be part of the process or something like that. Was some view or something like that, or?
Yeah, I'll try to, again, I'm wearing my just one person hat here, but what I think is fair to say is that we asked the town administrator to put together a hit us between the eyes capital budget that starts to, and he did just that. And on there, it included some Bay Street funds. There was an original main motion which would have funded $250,000 of that, but there was some confusion about whether that funding could be done with settlement funds. And by the time Monday turned into Wednesday, and I had also had a couple of conversations with the chair of the wastewater district, who satisfied me that the settlement funds were set for certain streets that are not the streets that the wastewater district and I believe the town administrator were recommending what I'll call the lowest hanging fruit. And so we rapidly reached a conclusion that we should not touch those settlement funds. There's this other side, interesting academic question about whether settlement money should even be voted on the docket. Completely mooted and irrelevant now. We can have a conversation about that, maybe never. So,
All right, so I need to ask about this.
Yep.
Because that sets off alarm bells for me, that we don't have, we're lowering litigation money, and then we're
Well,
not covering it there.
I didn't mean to
Our
misstate.
contingency fund.
I'm under no, I didn't mean to suggest that there's litigation threatened. I only use that as an example that if there's any big litigation, you would swamp a $60,000 litigation budget. I think that's fair to say. But I'm not aware of any threatened. That case is settled. What's on our mind is that the town settlement money is minuscule compared to what we estimate to be a $5 million need. There was debate at the council level about whether to fund some remediation work, even if we could not tap settlement. There was some motion activity that did not pass. So as it sits before you today, it's just zero, which I think is how it has been for some time. But what I think, it is now on a piece of paper that it's a need, much like OPEB, and there will be more, I think there's going to be some more workshops and activity on it.
And then, Ron, pardon me, Jan, if I recall correctly, you had set that money aside there in the capital budget to do a study, am I remembering right?
Not for the Bay Street area.
Not for the Bay Street area?
Although it's fair to say, maybe not a study, but there was, I think, a healthy discussion last night about the need to get maybe a better, a more robust plan for how this fairly large amount of work that involves both sewering and remediation of contaminated soils, how can we get that done the best way instead of sort of waffling from one to the other? It's a little, so there's a need for that. Whether that requires money to develop the plan is a different thing. The money I had asked for is about really would want to be able to do the town's portion of this, which is taking care of the contaminated soils under the streets. And when sewer has to, and then sewer has to go in, I mean, that's basically beyond question. But as soon as you do the sewer work, the town's responsibility for the soils is implicated. So one is not moving forward without the other, basically.
Okay.
So I guess where in the budget is that located?
That was zeroed out.
I'm in a little bit of a tough spot because that was my motion and it failed, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to lobby for that here. But the decision of the council was to leave that at zero. Both the town administrator's request and the motions from certain councilors did not pass. So, and I don't think that was a particularly close vote, but I can check the minutes on that. But I will say that the council did have a pretty solid workshop on Bay Street. I can tell you there will be a workshop on on-site water because I'm personally sponsoring that. And Mr. Kendricks has suggested, and I think that will also happen, that we will talk more about Bay Street part and part with the on-site. So all I mean to say is that there may not be money in the budget that's in front of you, but there still will be discussion and planning activity at the council level, for what it's worth. That I'm sure of.
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
Okay, well, if there's anything else you need, let me know. I'm going to report out to the council on Monday that this was here, and then as soon as I get the minutes, I think those minutes are going to be ready for Monday, so.
That's great.
And your meeting next week, so then you can, I'll make sure that you get those as soon as they're clear.
Okay, thank you for spending all the time. You added a lot of color
Yeah.
and detail and feeling to it that it's hard to get otherwise, so thank you.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, we've covered number 10. The next item on the agenda is number 11, discussion of and preliminary vote on land use budgets. And that would be, now I'm working off of the newest docket here. I'm going to work off it.
Page 3.
And so that's on page 3, at the bottom of page 3. Land use, parentheses, formerly building/planning.
Let's see. So one thing that happened last night is the second line item there for a building official. A motion was made to increase the salary for that. There was some, well, not some, there is a fairly strong concern shared by, I think, the majority on the council that we are not going to be able to hire a qualified candidate for this position at the salary level that we have been advertising it at. Not that it's a huge jump, but I think people did their homework, they looked at it. I don't disagree that, compared to what building officials are being paid in other towns, it's at the low end. And I also have the experience now that, notwithstanding advertising that position for a long time, we're not getting candidates. There may be some other reasons, but pay is certainly a part of it. And we would like to be able to make this interim arrangement that we have truly interim. We're getting good service, but it's ultimately more expensive and less efficient to have this arrangement with a consulting group. And I think we have better customer service ultimately if we have someone in place. So I didn't ask for it. The council members made the motion to go beyond what my request was, and I'm actually, quite happy with that.
That one surprised me, by the way.
So I think the rest, I don't know if you have questions about the salaries there. We have the planner. That salary was at the beginning bumped up a little bit with the expectation that he would be also the sort of the head of the department, if that department was actually going to be the land use department. There had been that discussion of merging planning on the one hand and building and zoning into one department, and then either the planner or the building official would become the head of that department. And as you may know, we also have the zoning officer, which we actually filled for a little while, but then he resigned. The zoning clerk actually is a key position there that's currently filled, and that salary is not going up in this budget yet because that's part of the negotiation. And let's see what else we have. I don't have anything in particular that I need to point out to you, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Where did I start last time? Start with Joe.
Only that I have no desire to have a part-time zoning officer, so it'll be one that I'll be looking to X out.
And if I may, one to that point, I think traditionally, or at least some time ago, it was not unusual for a building official to also be the zoning official. For some reason, people who want to be a building official don't want to be doing zoning. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but it's hard to find people who want to do both. And I'm not sure myself, because I haven't worked here that long, but apparently the experience was that it was so difficult to get a building official and also task him or her with the zoning work that it would be good to have someone, if only because we needed to get a little more serious about enforcement in the zoning area, code enforcement. And again, that was a policy decision made by the council that we needed to get, and I can understand it, because I think if you don't follow up on some of your decisions with enforcement, you don't have basically a level playing field for applicants. So that's where that position came from, and the hope was that it could be a part-time position and relieve the building official in the office in that sense, and get more enforcement done.
Jay?
Well, all I'm going to say is I'm glad somebody or a group of people are waking up to the fact that if you don't have a good salary for some of these department heads and officials that have a dramatic impact on the town, we're going to keep on having this revolving door. We're not going to have stability. We're not going to have people answerable. I'm glad the town council at least is on the forefront of doing that.
Tom?
Yeah. What's the rationale for increasing the software maintenance budget?
The which one?
The software maintenance budget, the last item.
Oh. Let's see. That one, I think it may have to do with the upgrades that we need in the GIS area that we've left subscriptions, what do you call it, lapse.
Okay, so this is part of your overall IT improvement or?
Well, this is actually fairly, because the IT improvement, we've tried to bundle and put them in a central spot, basically under the town administrator. But then we have, for some departments who have specific needs to that department, whether it's the assessor with that specific software, or the treasurer with her specific financial software, or the fire department with, particular software. So you still find some of that in separate departments because it's specific to that
Oh,
department.
I see. Yeah, okay. Are we largely computer-based now with our forms, or?
We're making huge strides. We did roll out the e-permitting this year, and that's working quite well. It's being used a lot, and we're getting very good feedback on it. And it saves, ultimately saves us time as well, so we can do more with, the people that we have instead of having to get additional. The one thing I will say is that I wish we could very quickly turn our paper records into electronic records, because that would make a huge difference. But that's sort of the next frontier for us.
Okay, thank you.
You mentioned the GIS system. Is that the same? Dave Roberts mentioned it also, so.
Right, and we wanted to make sure that, we would coordinate that. I understand from Dave that the kind of GIS program that he needs is somewhat different from, but even so, we're looking at, can we consolidate it as much as possible?
Okay, that's good, thanks. I think that was it, thank you. Oh, one last thing. When someone resigns, where does the rest of their salary go? Like if they don't use, so you have it for a year, right? And let's say they
Right.
work 8 months, I'm just curious.
Right, well, it could go back into the general fund if at the end of the year, and in this case, we're actually using it to pay the consulting firm that we have, Municipal Code Consulting, for the zoning-related work that it does.
Okay,
So we're now paying bills out of different pots of money for that firm, which is appropriate. You get the same kind of work for the money that it was appropriated for. So.
okay, thank you.
I'd like to pose my question. I have two questions. I sort of have three questions. I'd like to pose my first question to Jan, since I wasn't there last night. So, on the vote of the line item 5100, which is the department manager planner, and Jan, I know you're new to town. Was there a lot of motions or debate on that line item?
No, there wasn't. There wasn't. There seemed to be, a recognition.
It was in the baseline motion from Monday, and it didn't,
I don't know if
I
it
take that
wasn't-
back, but
I don't remember.
It wasn't hotly
Things
contested.
are happening so fast and the nights are so long that I don't remember it straight. But I don't know when it was proposed. I know there was talk about it, that I think in Monday night's
meeting, there was a discussion that we should think about raising it. And then it came back yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, and
What was the support on the council for, I mean, there was, I don't,
you know, I don't.
I think in a brief conversation today, Rob might have said what that vote was, but there were so many different votes.
I have my
and
notes in
whatnot.
my office, I don't have the.
So, but anyway, you don't remember
It was not a
cats and dogs over
controversial,
that?
no, absolutely not, no,
Okay, interesting.
which was a relief,
What's that?
which was a relief.
Well, I mean, you know, yeah. Well, I just, yeah, I mean, I'm a person who just don't believe in planners, period. And so, but when I don't hear, if you know, it's one thing for me to sit in this chair if I see cats and dogs fights, and when I hear that there's no cats and dogs fights on the council, and I sit over here, it's a lot harder for me to question it. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. And so this has been, when I was on the budget committee back in 2004 or 5, I made a motion which started this whole planner thing off, and I regret it to this day. But nevertheless, live and learn. So anyway, there was broad support by the council for the planner. I just needed to hear that in public. Second thing was building official.
And I'm sorry, we weren't bumping up the salary for the planner any further. And that was my original request, and it's a standard
Yeah.
2% increase.
Yeah.
The increase that was somewhat unexpected.
Was the building official.
Was the
And
building.
that was what I was gonna talk about. So I just wanna make it clear that while I understand that there's an issue, and there was a statement made at the meeting on Monday that the amount of money being paid to the, I'm gonna call it the temp agency building official, that's not proper, but I think it conveys the thought. The amount of money being paid to the temp agency building official is at 7.5, 8 months through the year, wherever we are right now, is $100,000 so far, or it's significant, whatever it is. It was, I don't know the number, it was significant. And it caught your eye, but it was without benefits and without, that's a straight number. So I'm not at all convinced that, that it was as lopsided as it sounds. I'm not at all convinced that if we take the building official's number, 75,000 or 68,000, and we load that up with vacation time, we load that up entirely with benefits and
Right.
everything else, I'm not convinced that we don't come out ahead going a la carte with the vendor, whoever we're using now. And I just wanted to make that comment. I don't know for a
I'm
fact.
not sure if I understand you correctly. What I can say is that when we first looked at this particular solution, going with an interim arrangement with
Outside vendor.
an outside vendor, we obviously wanted to make sure that it was somewhat affordable, that we weren't going to double the budget all of a sudden.
Right.
And also, there are not a whole lot of entities like that. They're basically two. And we worked with the other entity in the casino context. This one was really quite better than competitive, I would say, in terms of the rates they charge. And really were willing to further accommodate us as well. And then we even adjusted the contract a few months ago because it became more expensive. I alerted them, I said, look, this is getting to be more expensive than what we can afford with the budget. And we retooled the arrangement, and it actually has become even, cheaper is maybe not the right word to use, but it is less cost. So it isn't outrageously more expensive than you're right, what we would pay a full-time building official with the benefits. And we've actually used some of the benefits money now to pay for that money that we were lacking, in the building official account. And that was, I think, appropriate to do because, we would have spent it on the building official.
Okay, I just wanted to make my point, and I'm glad to hear that I wasn't that far off in the back of the napkin.
No, you're right.
Okay. And the last point was, I guess the last point was following up with what Joe said about line 5175, the zoning officer. So, is there anybody doing that now?
The firm that we're working with has people with zoning
Okay.
expertise, so yes.
So are
work is
they
being
sucking
done.
up that 32, that effect, are they also for that function sucking
Yes.
up that portion?
Yes.
Okay,
We had to do that. They've stepped up in that area because that vacancy came open
sure,
again. So
okay. So, yeah, the thought did cross my mind at some point in this discussion of just, and I don't know if it's feasible or not, but, you know how we do the planner with the AO? And we get, you know, you do the, well, the thought did cross my mind, you know, as we added a 10% increase off the bat last night is, you know, how much more do you have to throw at it to get someone to take the bait on that and do both functions? Can you split the difference? But that's just for another topic, I think. Your turn, Sherry?
No questions?
I'm all set.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Jan. So, okay.
Okay.
Have a good night.
9:25.
Next item on the agenda, and I have it up on my, I have it up here, and we can nail this really quickly. Next item on the agenda is my little pet peeve, number 12, it won't go away. And it's gonna now. Discussion and preliminary vote on boards and commissions budgets. So we have touched on, and this is on the docket that,
Can you tell me the page?
yeah, it's on page 11, I believe, in the document that was provided by the administrator. Good night, have a good weekend. So, we are, bottom of page 11, we have touched on and discussed, I don't want to discuss them again, Historical Cemetery Commission, Arts Council, Open Space Commission, Conservation Commission, Fort Barton Park Maintenance Tree Committee, and Historical Preservation Advisory Board, okay? The ones that we have not touched on, which I want to just spend a minute on, Recycling Committee, Personnel Board, and Budget Committee, okay? So, the Recycle Committee is listed at level funding of $150. I have no idea what they do with that, Jan, but they have $150. So, there you go. Does anyone have any questions for Jan on the Recycling Committee? What, budget line item?
Who's on the committee?
If I'm not mistaken, it's the same as the landfill committee. The
Yeah, it's
landfill
recycle
and the
and landfill
recycling.
committee.
Okay,
So is that, would money be used for, like, pamphlets?
I think for the recycling, that's where that money goes. It's educational activity,
Because
yeah.
like in the past, we've gotten magnets.
yeah, I got one on the fridge,
So it would,
yeah.
Yeah, it tells you the schedule and all that.
Yeah, that blue paper,
That's cool.
yeah.
Liar.
They do something at Pardon Gray too, so it's a little bit there.
No pizza boxes in the bin.
Hopefully, they'll come up with a campaign sometime soon. too.
Okay. Any other questions, or are we good on that one? Great. Next one's Personnel Board, 80, $40, $500 level across. Jan, do you know what they do with that, or
Yes, I do.
historically, what do they do?
Every time I have to hire someone, I have to first wait for the personnel board to look at all the resumes and narrow it down to candidates that it feels are qualified and should be interviewed. And then I get to interview them.
So this money is used
Although I will
to,
say that we're now trying to coordinate that a little bit more in the interest of time, and that's working out quite well.
great,
But yeah, there is a board that goes through all the, for example, we now have, believe it or not, 21 applications for the fire chief position. And those applications are voluminous because we ask for all the certifications. So it's a lot of work to do that. And they're going to go through that and take a first stab at narrowing things down before we go on. So that's the work that they.
Is that just the copy?
I think so, yeah, it's the administrative cost primarily, yeah, correct.
okay, that's fair. Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, everyone all set on that one? And last but not least, the Budget Committee.
Can I actually, because on
Oh.
the Historic Preservation Advisory Board, you may notice that I had a request for 2,500, and actually before last night, it had been zeroed out. But there was Sue Anderson.
I heard she came in and asked for
She came
400.
in, she did a good job, and she said, if we can't do the signs, then, I really need the money to do this other work, which is the map and everything else. And so a motion was made to at least fund that much.
I heard she asked for 400, they gave her 5, is what I heard, yeah.
I didn't hear the 400. She may have
Yeah,
said that.
that's what I heard, anyway.
Okay.
And I wasn't even there.
Well, thanks for watching.
My ego's there. Anyway, thank you for mentioning that, Jan. So Budget Committee. So the 1250, and so $500. Now, it's my understanding, and I wasn't on the committee last year, but now we pay our bill, I guess, for, is it Andrew? Andrew?
Yeah.
We pay our bill. We pay our own bill. Is that what we do now? So that's what I assume that this is for. Is that true, Brendan? We use this to pay our bill?
I don't know.
Yes,
I think we do, right?
that's what it's for.
It's the only bill we have.
That's what Nancy Mello said that, yes.
Right.
I don't think.
Nancy told us.
500 is enough. I think,
I just question if there's a balance in an account though already or something, maybe.
I don't think so. I
No,
think
she
it
said-
was 1250 and it came down to 500 because there was discussion about not filming these sessions all the time. And I think it is important to catch all our meetings.
Well,
So I think it should go back up.
well, let's ask the town administrator. Jan, when did you enter the 500?
I
Or-
did. I'm guilty.
So was it just a wag or what was it?
Pretty much.
Okay.
I guess for the life of me couldn't figure out
What we
what
did?
$1,250 was.
We wanted a really nice Dell.
And I only now, understand what it was actually for, and I agree, it's important to have that service, and it's important to pay for it as well, so, that didn't come
Yeah,
up.
okay. So why don't we do this? Thank you, Jan. Understand, Jan, no problem. So with Jennifer's comments, why don't we try to figure out, we're just maybe, I think Nancy Valley usually is on the pulse of that, right, on those costs?
Yeah, we should.
We just figure out what it is,
The
we'll
actual-
figure out how many meetings, we'll do the math, and we'll figure out if there's any balance. Like, I have something that tells me there's some money in the account, but maybe not.
No, I
Well,
don't
Jeff,
think there was.
if you look back at other years, there was always 1250, but in 16, 17, they used 1050. And then
Okay.
it was
So maybe it
1250,
needs to be
1250,
1250.
always 1250. I don't
Okay,
know.
so that's just a quick phone call maybe to the town clerk, who tends to be on the pulse of that. So thank you for raising that point, because I would have glossed right over it. Okay, are we all good on this boards and commissions? Can we close it once and forever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen. Till we actually, okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 13, officially now. We've spoken about these a few times, but it's officially now, knock through it. Number 13, discussion preliminary vote on civic appropriations budgets, next page, which is page 12. And so here we are. And there they are. We had a woman come in, I forget her name, with no disrespect, and spoke about the wildlife where she helps animals, and
Kim Parent.
yeah, and she helps the animals. That,
That's not even in here.
no, it's not, but I have it written here. But she's not a request, but I do have a note of that.
Right.
But we have not seen testimony from any others. Anyway, I don't know how, do we just, at this point, Jan, do you want to say any words on any of these? And I know the vote's already happened by the council.
It's already happened. This doesn't show all of the requests, because I think I may have put, no, I had not put in for the wildlife rehab, because it had come in late.
was too late, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a lot of it got zeroed out. Eastern Conservation District was first zeroed out and then restored.
I'm glad to see those two that were mentioned came back. Okay.
Can I ask
And also, I will say that fire and rescue initially was zeroed out, but restored in part because of
The
some very
letter.
eloquent explanation by David Paul.
Yeah, we
the
have a big
letter.
memo on that, don't we here?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's in
I
our
made
file.
a copy of the explanation, and
Great,
that won people over last night, so.
good.
And part of that, just so that people know, and also for the record, I think the mistake that
I had made in the Monday night meeting, I believe, was, I didn't know that this nonprofit training center not only provides like CPR training for the community, for the schools and whatever, but actually trains our own people as well. So that, when we have a training budget for the fire department, for example, that's part of the funding, but this also helps with that. So it actually, helps pay for expenses that the town would otherwise have to incur anyway. It's
Sure.
probably worth mentioning.
Sure.
Can I say something on that item? That if we don't fund it, they have to go out, and I guess we got this letter from David Paul, right? That it would be a lot more expensive to go out and get someone else to do it. So
Oh, yeah.
4,000 or
you can't do
5,000,
anything
maybe
for
more.
$1,250
something.
these
Yeah.
days,
That's
so.
what he said.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
We'll go around,
Yeah.
we'll go on this way, and we'll hopefully move through this
you wanna
quickly.
start?
No questions? Jay?
Well, you better do me last, because I've got a little long-winded statement here.
Okay.
I'm good.
All set.
Thanks.
I'll go second and last. I just want to keep moving.
I just, all right, I would like to, and Jan, I'm more than willing to call your office during the day and ask these questions. But I see that Newport County Mental Health Center and visiting nurses of Newport County, I don't know, it looks like, I don't have the actuals if we gave them what we gave them last
They're right here.
time.
Oh, that
You
one.
see that, that's the approved, for last year, okay. So we didn't give them anything last year. That's, I just had questions because I know that there are people in the town that go out to
Yeah.
Newport County Mental Health Services and are having issues with there not being something close by to be able to use for Tiverton. So I don't know if they're looking for help for that.
So I think, in your backup materials, there are letters from these various organizations explaining what kind of services they provide, but also in several instances, statistics on the number of people from
I
our
saw some of them
community
in
that
our
they
book,
serve.
but I didn't see, I don't know if I was missing any. And the other one I'd like to find out what it is the parents as teachers.
And I don't know much about that.
Okay.
I think I heard that it's basically a dormant
Okay,
organization.
okay, all right.
Brendan?
Yeah, and I think the merits of some of these I think we can go into when we vote.
Okay.
But in the backup, there's some compelling information about what's done for the citizens. So I don't have any questions, but
Mhm.
we can drag it out at that point in terms of when we go to voting.
Jennifer?
Yeah, and I see the council has removed the visiting nurses. All of these were funded, Sherry, 3 years ago. And they've been left bit by bit, and the amount of service we get from these agencies is colossal. It's like, I'll try to find the figures, but I'm quite surprised visiting nurses is a really essential service. I think the argument in the past has been, well, it's a privately funded thing, and you're just asking for donations, and you shouldn't be donating. But there's, it's worth further discussion about doing our part to help out those that are helping us.
It's fair to say that these were not unanimous votes.
They were not unanimous.
Okay.
And the discussion is somewhat interesting because I think in fairness, it may be, worthwhile just mentioning, I don't necessarily agree with it, but the philosophy, or the question has been raised, how do we decide who we provide support for or who we provide funding for? Because there's so many organizations. And, what is the role of the town supporting these organizations. And those are in and of itself, reasonable questions, I think, to ask, but people end up answering them in very different ways.
So am I going, everyone's gone second to last? I'm second to last now, I think,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, my comment is that, yeah, I take some issue with I have two comments just in general. I take some issue with the decision of where to give the money being made by, a personal money going to these types of organizations through the government. Just take some issue with that. And versus just someone making a contribution on their own, instead of through the tax roll. Second issue I have, and this is going to be a tough nut for me to ever let go of, is, and we're funding this one at an increase, which is of note to me. East Bay Community Action. So we were sat here, and I don't know what year it was we sat here. I don't know if it was just 2 years ago, but I sat here, and the woman came who was the director of that organization, and she was, I don't quite know where she was in the whole East Bay thing, but she was like top 6 in the company, whatever that was. Top 6, like in the organization.
Okay.
And my memory is that she made $106,000 a year. 106. And I think this place does like food kitchen stuff.
They
And
do Head Start.
and $106,000 a year, and she was like top 6. Like I don't know where she was in there, and she was here asking for $5,000, and I don't know. It just didn't sit well with me. And so anyway, especially where it was going out through the taxes, through forced taxation. So anyway, that's just my sense. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jay for the big moment. No, Jay wanted to go last.
But I want to respond to you.
Oh,
He can
all
go
right.
after me.
All right, hurry up.
Also, they have like a budget of 700, they have a large budget of 7 million or something, some
Okay.
large amount.
I don't know about that. Go ahead, Jay. You're up. You're last. Go ahead.
My big moment. All right. It's frequently been stated that the town of Tiverton has no business donating public money derived from taxes or other sources to any charitable organization. That it should be an individual decision regarding whom to donate to and not compelled through taxes. Whether we know or care to know, the town already makes very substantial donations to charitable organizations and has done so for many years as mandated by the state. Every year, the town does not levy property taxes on properties owned by churches and charitable organizations. We do, however, assign a property value to them. And we don't collect taxes. In 2017, this amounted to $15,800,000, rough figures, for church property and about $250,000 for charities. If you use the tax rate at that time, we donated about $280,000 a year to charities. This far exceeds the minuscule amount being requested here. These guys provide direct personal services to individuals. It's not like going to church and listen to a minister and put money into donations. So when the visiting nurses arrive, they're supporting an individual. So I don't think that it's asking too much for us to give some of our tax money to those organizations. And if you look at surrounding communities, you'll find that they give a hell of a lot more than we do.
And there's been, it is possible that we would lose services. By not
all right,
being-
Well, the visiting nurses, is one of my pet peeves.
Yeah.
Yeah, the visiting nurses contract, that they come to your house, they bill your insurance company, yes, but they do a lot of other things too. And like I've mentioned in the past, the visiting nurses, just like the postal delivery guy, he sees a pile of mail at your door, he figures something's wrong with you, and he calls the police and the fire department, and they show up. Well, the visiting nurses do a similar thing. They come and provide support to a elderly person or an ill person who most probably, if they didn't have the visiting nurses, who are they going to call? They're going to call the fire department. They're going to call the police department. So that town resource is going to have to come to that person. Sure, they paid their taxes, they deserve, it's their right to have them there. But if we could have the visiting nurses do it too, it would be less of a burden on the town resources. So I think what the service we get out of these people is worth a lot to us, and we're not paying that much.
Okay, thank you, Jay. I think that's good. It's now 5 of 10, according to that clock. And I'd like to close out, for now, it's just early, we're not even voting here, necessarily, it's preliminary discussion, so we're just going to close it out. Number 13, I have approval of minutes from February 28th, 2019. I see, can I have a motion and a second to approve them? I already have one typo, one correction, actually.
Wait. Yeah, hold on, let me.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 28th, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, first of all, I have one correction. In discussion of and preliminary vote on library services budget. The last sentence is factually incorrect. This chair stated that he would ask for an opinion from the town solicitor. I specifically avoided that. I did not do that. I said that I would figure out something to do, in my own words, at 5 of 10 now. I did not say that I was going to go get an opinion from the town solicitor, and that's what I did. I came up with this idea, worked with the council president, and spoke about this memorandum of understanding and blah, blah, blah.
Can I have
So,
that to strike it? Okay.
well, I haven't finished.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You don't have a copy?
I did, but I'll find it. Oh, here it is. I did. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So that's my comment there, is that, I'm trying to think of a better way to word it. The chair stated that he would, I definitely did not say that.
Do we even need to have that? Can I just strike
That he
it?
would give some thought to give some thought to actions that could be taken. How's that?
Okay.
Which I did. I think I came through with that. I hope you feel like I did, Joe. Okay. Are there any other corrections? I have to admit that I'm still going through these.
You can email me if you finish. Oh, no, they have to, never mind. This meeting, so.
Okay. I'm just going to go through administrative items. Okay, we're good.
Change, you said that the site visits are subject to change, so then you still have to do that.
All right, I'm fine with that one correction. If anyone else have corrections, are y'all good? Okay, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the minutes as amended, as corrected? Thank you. Okay, the next one, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for, what would it be, March 2nd?
So moved.
A very scant group here who will vote on this one. The snow people.
Okay, that's right, this was, I can't even make the motion.
Yeah, why don't we have someone, right, Joe? Okay, let's back up. Let's start
Do we
over.
need to have minutes or a
Well,
meeting that didn't happen?
yeah, we do, because I want to, I don't want to, we went down this road, Brendan.
I-
We went down this road ad nauseum. And
So
the issue is that the meeting wasn't canceled on the Secretary of State's website. And so I just want to close it out with with just a statement. So because you know how there's a law and all
There
that.
wasn't a
and-
quorum.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll make a motion that,
Well, it's just got to be someone who was there. Were you there?
Ruth and Brendan have to do it.
What? Whoever was there.
I make a motion
So-
that we approve the Saturday, March 2nd, 2019.
Second. Second?
Any discussion between you two?
No?
Thank you, Ruth, for being there.
All those in favor?
Thank you, Brendan, for trying
Oh.
to come.
No, you can't vote. You
Oh, I
can't vote.
can't vote.
Only two people
Okay,
can vote.
so do you have that? Okay, good, that's done. Thank you, Ruth. Ruth and I went to blows over that one. Thank you, Brendan.
No, I didn't. I did not.
Okay, so, the next, where's my agenda here?
And there were 2 votes.
Okay, so, administrative items. I would like to add, and I'm gonna notice it, tomorrow. So, Sherry, I'm gonna do agenda notice tomorrow. Scheduling of additional special meeting on Tuesday, okay, at Town Hall. And what I'd like to do, at this meeting, remember, on Thursday we have sorry. I'd like to first of all, we'll have this meeting, okay, let's just say that. On Tuesday, I'd like to have a special meeting. If we get a quorum, that's great, okay? I don't anticipate, I mean, it's important if we can all make it, but if we get a quorum, that's great. And I just want to take a look at, with the committee, I want to take a look at the docket that Tom's put a lot of time into that. So I want to take a look at it and start going through some mechanics. So I wanted to schedule that meeting. Are we going to be able to have a quorum at that meeting on Tuesday?
This coming Tuesday?
Yeah.
We're gonna be away.
You're going to be away?
I was going to be there.
Okay, I'll be there.
I'll be here.
Will Jeff be back?
I was going to Tahiti, but
don't
I'll
know.
come.
Yeah, well, I changed my mind. I'm going with Joe.
Are you going to be here? Are you going to be here?
Unless it
I don't say it. So, it sounds like we got a quorum. Okay, so I want to do that. Okay, so I want to do that, and the great. And then the next thing is, so I'm going to move to 16 B, scheduling and testimony, as I stated. If I find that we've missed any people in our testimony sessions, I'll add them for that Tuesday if I can make it work. I don't think we have. I may take a look also, although we did such a good job tonight with Rob here with looking at the revenues and stuff that maybe we don't even have to go over it again. But, you know, I'm just going to give some thought to what we might want to look at and just sort of have a catch your breath sort of a night. And then on Thursday, at 8 o'clock, the school committee is going to come in at around 8 o'clock, and I'll schedule some things before that. And I'm expecting that at some point, Jan is going to submit this budget when he's probably had a chance to read it with a cup of coffee with a cover letter to make it official at some point, and hopefully in the next few days or Monday or something. And that'll be good. And until we have both these budgets, though, of the school and this one, and everything from the clerk and the treasurer, which are due, by the way, on Saturday, a week from this Saturday. Hopefully we can get them a little sooner. So we have those. We said we'd take no official votes, okay? So everyone can still know that. And scheduling of site visits. So there's one site visit that we're going to have on Saturday. This one left scheduled unless we decide to add one for some other topic. The site visit this Saturday is the recreation one that got snowed out last weekend. It will start at Town Farm at 9 a.m. And we'll be met there by Chris, I believe, who we saw earlier tonight. And the site visit will begin there at 9. It will, when that's done, it will move to Pecasset Field Playground at 242 Main Road, and then it will move to the Bayview Playground at 53 Hooper Street. So there are on the agenda a couple of phone numbers if anyone from the public wants to join that midstream and wants to find where the tour is at. Okay, it's 9 o'clock this Saturday, site visit.
So just a question, is it important to be able to look at the fields?
Is it important?
Yeah, so is snow a hindrance
I
for
think-
this visit?
I don't know. I mean, I think right now, what people really wanted to look at was the playgrounds. I don't know why, I just had a feeling that was like a big push here, the playgrounds, because that was what was in the capital plan, I know a lot, to be funded.
Yep, there was mention of grubs, which
Well,
we're not
yeah.
gonna be able to see.
All right, well, if we need to, we can go back when the snow melts, but right now, we got snowed out once, and I'd like to try to get this one off. I mean, are you guys around Saturday, or? Yeah. Is it supposed to warm up, or? I don't really know.
No, it's supposed to rain till Saturday, Sunday, and I don't think it's gonna melt anytime soon.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
I don't know. I don't know what to do.
I don't know.
Do it next
All right.
Saturday.
We
Well,
adjourn
it's
at
scheduled now,
7:05.
so I'd like to try to get the playground part done, because it's in the capital plan, and I know it's something that we're gonna be talking about.
And
And the last thing is discussion of docket development and process. So as I mentioned a minute ago, Tom, over the last week, took all the information from Brendan, put it into, brought it over and updated it and did all the magic. And then he also took some information that was coming in, that was being worked on live by the council, and now we also have this now. So I think we're at a point, and we didn't have time tonight, which is fine, but I think we're at a point where on Tuesday, I'm hoping that we can put it up here and start, kind of looking at that work product with Excel. Maybe Tom wants to drive the mouse on that, I don't know. Just sort of, so we can also see what's going on, get familiar. What I also like to, and just look at the calculations, and just, we haven't done that as a group yet. And then, I'd also think maybe what we could do, I was hoping that, and again, it's all preliminary voting, but what I was hoping to do was identify a whole bunch of these simple things, like the ones that Brendan mentioned early on, like the debt service, ones that seem like that they're locked in, Social Security, those ones there, and maybe we could just do like a single preliminary vote on those, and then that would allow Tom, just like, we can enter them in and like make them green, just so we can practice. Yeah, we
There are
yeah.
big chunks that are.
Preliminarily, yeah, just so we can kind of do something, And so I was hoping we could do that. And so when I send this notice out, this agenda notice for tomorrow, when I wake up fresh, I'll think about how I'm going to word it. Maybe I've already gone through the docket once and checked them off, which ones I think, and we can adjust it if Jay says, "Oh, we shouldn't touch," we'll just take it off when we get here. We don't, it doesn't. If I put one in that someone doesn't want to vote on, we don't have to. It's just a preliminary vote, but that's fine. But I just thought that way we could kind of do one, and we could make a bunch of cells go away and feel like we accomplished something. Is that all okay with everyone?
Yeah, why are you picking on me?
I don't know. Because you didn't like my ordering earlier.
Respected.
I got the evil eye earlier. Sorry, Jay.
One thing that we had periodic updates from the tax assessor
Yeah.
on what he thought the total.
I got the
valuation
number.
was gonna be.
I just got the number a week ago.
And that number, though, doesn't become, I guess it's always an estimate until the end of
Mhm.
the fiscal year.
It's actually an estimate right till after the FDR, yeah.
Right. So, but he had, if I recall last year, it was 2 or 3 times as we were doing it, but it's huge in terms of what the effect on the tax rate.
The rate,
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
I have that number. I just got it from
Everything
him.
that we're doing, if we're looking at the tax rate per thousand, that will be something. So making sure we build in that if he comes in and he says, okay, I have more information, that will determine a lot of what we're coming down to as to how much we think we're raising the tax rate or lowering it. It's going to be a basis on that $1 billion number.
Yes, and I just spoke to him, like, I had actually hoped to spend a little time with Tom's product in the last week, and I didn't, but I think it was like last Friday, right, at the end of the workday, I called Dave and said, hey, shoot me the number. So then of course, the week went by and I haven't touched it, but we'll be getting it again, of course, yeah.
So if you're talking to each other, you don't need to have him come in, is that what you're saying?
Oh, no, yeah, he can just shoot us
Yeah.
the number every once in a while. I mean, he'll come in if we need him, but I don't think, so that's just the ratable property base, the 2.2 billion, and then the motor vehicle number. Yeah.
Okay, are we all set? Closing remarks, we're good? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor? Thank you, everyone.